What's up, everybody? Good morning and happy Wednesday. Making a turn already on this week. DK Show up on the air on your radio dials of 105.1 FM, 790 AM. Also available online, sportstalk1051.com. You can stream it up over there. Your Google and Alexa home devices, the Sports Talk app, and video stream, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Hopefully, you're all having a fantastic start on this 20th of December. What do we got on the game plan for us here this morning? Bucks picking up a win last night, their fifth straight win last night over the San Antonio Spurs, 132 to 119. A little bit of an off night for the for Giannis, only 11 points for the Greek Freak last night, but it was the other superstars night, Damian Lillard, who helped to cause 40 points for Dame time. And he also joined with that 40 points the 20,000 point club. 20,000 point club. He is the 51st person in NBA history and eighth active player to reach 20,000 career points. And he became the 17th fastest player to reach that milestone. In case you're wondering, who are the other players, who are the active other players in that category? Names you know: LeBron, Kevin Durant, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Steph Curry, DeMar DeRozan, maybe you didn't know that one, and then Chris Paul. Lillard, James, Curry, and Harden are also the only players in NBA history to have 20,000 points, 5,000 assists, and 2,000 three-pointers. I think we know Giannis is probably going to be joining that company too. But nonetheless, big game from Dame time last night. Bucks getting their fifth straight win. They'll go at it again tomorrow night at home. Final home game here before they go on this road trip. But tomorrow night's game going to be going up against the Orlando Magic. Speaking of hoops, college-wise, last night, Marquette getting upset by Providence in their first conference game of the season, 72 to 57. So the sixth-ranked Marquette Golden Eagles falling, dropping their first conference game last night. Memphis also, we remember we did these picks. Had a 23 versus 22 matchup. Memphis 77 to 54 over Virginia too. So, oof. But we got a couple of interesting games coming at you tonight if you're into some college hoops. Duke taking on Baylor. Duke 21, Baylor number 10. You got North Carolina, number 11 in the country, taking on number 7, Oklahoma. Arizona's also in action. Creighton's in action. Gonzaga's in action too. So, but we'll talk some hoops. Talk some hoops a little bit later on here this morning. Also, we're going to talk some baseball. We're going to talk some baseball. Corbin Burns, he's kind of been, in a Brewers sense. I guess the next big question: what are the Brewers going to do? Ken Rosenthal from The Athletic has a new post up just about 8 hours ago in the middle of the night, late last night. The Milwaukee Brewers' willingness to trade Corbin Burns remains unclear, but the possibility exists that the team might carry Burns into the season because of owner Mark Adonasio's desire to compete and avoid the type of backlash, the team received for trading Josh Hader, according to Major League sources briefed on the team's thinking. If the Brewers fail to contend, they could move Burns at the 2024 deadline, which we've been saying for a while now, and receive a comparable or perhaps even better return as long as he stays healthy. The problem at the moment for teams open to trading starting pitching is that numerous free agents remain available. Of those, only Blake Snell would require the loss of a draft pick. The others cost only money, enabling teams to keep their picks and prospects. Burns is projected to earn about $15.1 million in his final year of arbitration. So I know last year, too, it was a whole arbitration thing. I feel like there's going to be more eyes paid attention to this arbitration thing between the Brewers and Corbin Burns because of the issues that surrounded, that whole drama ordeal last year. But Ken Rosenthal went on to say that Anastasio then might very well be thinking, why do this? Why not try to compete first? The Brewers have proven quite adept at maximizing limited resources, making the playoffs in 5 of the past 6 seasons, which all of those, however, came under Craig Counsell, which, come to think of it, might be another reason for Anastasio to hold Burns, and for that matter, Willy Adames. Surely the owner would love to best Counsell, who bolted for the Chicago Cubs. The problem with keeping Burns is that he could get injured before the deadline and perhaps even decline in performance. If the Brewers contend, trades of Burns and Adames seem out of the question for an organization that remains scarred by the Hader fallout. So for Burns, Adames, and Brandon Woodruff, who was non-tendered, the Brewers could end up with only 2 draft picks, one if they decline to make Adames a qualifying offer. So there's a little bit of an update. Well, there's more from Ken Rosenthal about the Brewers and such, but those are kind of the big highlights out there. We'll talk a little Brewers and all that stuff too. I know Corbin Burns was on foul territory yesterday, kind of talking about his future. And maybe any Brewers fan holding on to any glimmer of hope that the Brewers would have a long-term or offer him a long-term extension, yeah, you could kind of shut that down, because he said every guy who gets this close to free agency wants to test the market. He went on to say that he would have to be blown away by an extension to avoid free agency, even if he were to be traded. So, yeah. We'll get to that. Also, yeah, and there's some people kind of saying, I was reading a little bit here, it sounds like Mark Anastasio is maybe getting involved in preventing a trade from Corbin Burns because of the perceived backlash from it. So let me throw that out to you, you well-educated and well-informed and smart listeners, you. What would you do from a business standpoint? Try to take the emotions out of it. Maybe from a business standpoint. If you're the general manager, you are Matt Arnold in this situation. Would you be open? Not saying you have to make that decision to trade him out. Would you be open to it? And not necessarily maybe worried about the fans' reaction, because maybe, just maybe, it sounds like here a little bit that's what's kind of making Mark Anastasio a little bit apprehensive about the possibility of trading Corbin Burns. One, I think it's a couple things. One, I think he still believes that, he keeps saying he's not a believer in a rebuild, and that. And obviously, I think if you trade your top starter, that kind of signifies that maybe you're rebuilding. But also, too, yeah, the backlash that from the fans about trading Josh Hader, probably doesn't want to go through that again. But if you're the general manager, you're Matt Arnold. From a business standpoint, and taking away your fanism and taking away the emotions, would you prefer? I shouldn't say would you prefer. Would you be open to the possibility of trading Corbin Burns, knowing it may set you back for this year? Do you like the fact, or maybe as a fan, and now on the flip side of this, as a fan, do you like the fact that reportedly Anastasio is saying, no, we ain't trading Corbin Burns? Let's assume that's kind of where it's at. I know I'm kind of, picking apart some of that stuff, but let's assume, if Mark is still scarred from the fallout of the Josh Hader trade, and he's saying no to any Corbin Burns trade, as a fan, do you like that? Or would you be like, hey, Mark, he's the owner, let GM do his thing. Let the GM do his work. Let him make those decisions. Hit me up with some texts on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line with your thoughts at 715-830-1912. Football-wise, Packers will be back at practice today, hitting the field to prepare for the Carolina Panthers, their third to last game of the regular season here. Interesting article on PackersNews.com. If you have any of the, some of these websites, a lot of them too, you get a few free reads on there. Otherwise, it may cost you to read it. But Pete Doherty, excuse me. I always want to call him Chris Daughtry. Anyways, Pete has a piece about Quay Walker and talks about how Joe Barry is underutilizing Quay Walker. Joe Barry's use of Quay Walker, emblematic of Packers' defensive woes. And I was able to read it, and I thought it was an interesting read. And probably for a lot of fans out there too. It's, a common theme that we've been hearing or even saying ourselves is this defense, are we getting the best, or are we getting all the talents out of this defense? Are we just not utilizing all that talent there? And and in my opinion, I believe one of those guys is maybe we're not utilizing to the best of their abilities is a guy like Quay Walker. I feel like, given his skill set, giving his, physical specimen or whatever you want to call it. I mean, the dude's 6'4". He's a speedy inside linebacker. Guy's still young in his second year. I feel like he is a player that, he's a player that you can utilize in a bunch of different ways. Are we not seeing that from Quay Walker? And then defensively, let me also throw this question out to you, Packers fans. Is there a player on this defense that you think is potentially being held back? You got to pick one. I'm going to force you to pick one. I don't want you to give me a group or a few guys. If you had to pick one, I want you to think about this for a little bit. One player, because we keep hearing that, a lot of people believe the defense has the talent. Player-wise, they have the talent, but they're just not utilizing that talent. Joe Barry's not utilizing that talent to the best of their abilities. If you had to pick one, who do you think is one player that is maybe being held back the most, or we're not seeing that potential tapped into enough, that we're not seeing what that player, in your opinion, could really do, really maximize their talent? Who do you think that player is? Is it a guy like Quay Walker? Is it maybe you believe it's the veteran Kenny Clark? Yesterday we talked about snap counts and snap percentages. Rashawn Gary, the highest was, snap counts that he has played all season long was just this past week, and it was at 70. And for a lot of the premier pass rushers out there, that's their minimum, or that's been their lowest. They've been in the 80s, 90s. Max Crosby's even had a few 100%, played 100% of the snaps. Maybe you feel like it's even a guy like Rashawn Gary. But if you had to pick one, I'm going to ask you to pick one player on that defensive side that you truly believe that is maybe not being properly utilized, or we're kind of seeing, maybe in your opinion, being held back a little bit. What do you think? All right. Let me know. We'll hit that up coming up here a little bit. Also, college football wise, signing day for the class of 2024. So if we have any big signings coming through here for this morning, Badger football and such, we'll keep you posted on signing day today. We know a lot of the recruits for 2024, right? We know some of those players already, but things become a little bit more official. And this is really the first true recruiting class for Luke Fickell under the Luke Fickell era. They're expected to sign around 20 players. Again, maybe something could change last minute and such. I was reading a little bit earlier this morning from 24/7 Sports. and this was on Badger Extra as well from Colton Bartholomew. But 24/7 Sports Director of Scouting, Andrew Ivins, said when I look at this class for the Badgers, he said it's a lot of what Fickle was doing at Cincinnati. They're going after guys with traits, developmental upside, big frames. They have a game plan. Everyone on the staff, there's certain metrics and thresholds that must be met in order for them to take that individual. So we'll go through what the class is expected to be. Kind of look at some of these players and such, and we'll officially get some of those players signing up today on signing day. We'll keep you posted on that. It is also a stock report, so whose stock is rising, whose stock is falling. I'm going to maybe take away any stock falling from any Packers coaches because that's probably an easy one. But if you could think of another one, maybe think a little bit outside of the green and gold world out there, let us know. Also, Business of Sports Wednesday, we'll hit that up just past 8 o'clock. Got some fans clamoring, thinking, pondering that Green Bay should trade Jair Alexander this offseason. We'll explain why that actually could do more harm than good in terms of salary cap and exactly what is, dead cap and all that fun stuff. So we'll hit that up coming up just past 8 o'clock as well. But let's get things rolling here this morning. I know I threw a lot at you here this morning. I threw in a Brewers question for you about the whole Corbin Burns thing. As a fan, do you appreciate Mark Anastasio potentially saying, no, we're not trading Corbin Burns, maybe because he's afraid of the backlash? Or do you think that the general manager should be able to do what they want to do, even if maybe you don't like it or not? And then I threw in that Packers defensive question. If you had to pick one player that you think is being held back, or maybe their talent isn't being properly utilized, who is that one player? Is it a Quay Walker? Is it Rashawn Gary? Is it a veteran like Kenny Clark? Is it somebody else? Lots to get to here this morning. Let's get at it right away. We'll take that first break, and then coming up, we'll open up things here this morning on the leadoff. Kind of see where the conversation flows here. Hit me up with some text, 715-830-1912. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. I was looking at the recruiting rankings from 24/7 Sports for this 2024 class for football, for college football. And I mean, you've got your typicals up there at the top: Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Alabama's 3, Florida State's 4, Texas 5. You got the U sitting there at 6, Oklahoma 7, Oregon 8, Notre Dame 9, Florida 10. And it's looking at, like, okay, looking at other Big Ten teams. And I'm like, dang it. It's going to be weird because you got to factor in Oregon. I was looking at the typical Ohio State, Nebraska, Penn State, Michigan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, no, we got to throw in these other ones. So with that, in case you are one that that looks at the rankings, again, these are high school kids coming in, 3, 4, sometimes 5 stars and that. But if you're into these rankings and these recruiting classes, Wisconsin is 7th, ranked 7th in the Big Ten. Kind of an interesting note here too. Only 2 teams. These are just rankings according to 24/7 Sports too. But there's only 2 teams in the Big Ten that landed 5-star recruits, and only 1 team that landed multiple 5-star recruits. Ohio State has 5, and Nebraska, the other one. Nebraska is the other one, not Michigan. Not Michigan. And of course, Nebraska's 5-star one is the quarterback that we were talking about yesterday, Dylan Raiola. But yeah, you got Oregon's got the 2nd highest ranked class in the Big Ten here. Then it's Penn State. Then it's Michigan, USC, Nebraska, Wisconsin coming in at number 7. Wisconsin, 7 4-star kids, 13 3-star kids here. So, again, it's just interesting to kind of see where it looks out. Does it transition? Does it translate into these players are actually going to go out there and be ballers and some of the best players in the college football world? And that, no, I mean, how many times have we seen this? How many times have we talked about, 5-star recruits, highly touted 4-star recruits coming into the program, and for whatever reasons, they don't pan out. They don't pan out. So I always think it's kind of interesting to see where the rankings lie or line up and kind of where it's compared to some of the other teams out there too. So, but yeah, I was looking at it like Big Ten. I'm like, oh, forgot he had to throw in Oregon and USC into that mix here. UCLA is actually 17th on here right now with Chip Kelly's group over there. So Washington here, Washington in the Final Four right now, 12th. Only 6 4-star kids with their 15 commits. So, anyways, we'll keep you posted if anything major pops up through the through signing day today. But if you're looking at it again, 24/7 Sports, Badgers, their top ones there is a running back, Dylan Jones, a 4-star recruit. You've got another Dylan Johnson, defensive lineman, who's a 4-star recruit. Kevin Haywood, offensive tackles, a 4-star recruit. Grant Steck, 4-star tight end. Dude's tall, 6'6", about 220 on there too. So, all right, let's get things going here this morning. On the leadoff, we got quite a few of you already chiming in. Keep them coming on the texting line. It's mostly regarding the Packer question I threw out there. If you had to pick one player, on this defensive side for the Packers that you feel like is maybe that you feel like we're maybe not seeing the full potential on display, that maybe this defense, that maybe Joe Barry isn't properly utilizing, because majority of, let's call them football people out there, analysts, outsiders, outside observers, believe Green Bay's defense has talent and that they've got talent on the field player-wise. And, well, you'd hope so, for as much as they've invested in draft picks and high draft picks and sometimes even money and such, that you would hope that was the case. So what's the shortcomings here? Well, a lot of people believe it's because that maybe the defensive coordinator and the scheme isn't getting the most out of the players on the field. And if that's the case, if you had to pick one, you had to pick the player that you think is maybe getting the most disservice or really not tapping into that potential on the defense side, who would that be? And honestly, it is about a 50-50 right now. It's running away with just two players over here from a lot of the text out here. I'm not going to go through every single text, but it's Rashawn Gary and it's Quay Walker for a lot of you. Now, if you have a reason why you believe that, please send that over. Give me your analysis. I'm genuinely curious. And really, those were the two players I kind of thought were going to be the top two out there. I thought that would be the two players that maybe there was going to be some Devontae Wyatt picks out there. I'd kind of throw him into, I'm genuinely. Let me bring up the snap counts again, not to rehash the conversation we had yesterday, but we were focusing on, snap counts for the edge rushers and such. What's Devontae Wyatt's snap count look like so far this year? So he's got the third most snap counts on this team. If you're looking at total number, percentage-wise, he's about third on here too, behind Kenny Clark and TJ Slate. Carl Brooks is the other one on here who's getting some snaps on here. Colby Wooden they've got listed as a defensive end here too, but nonetheless, I think you can make a case for Devontae Wyatt. I think he kind of last week, here's the thing too. So, if we rewind it at the beginning of the year when we were in preseason, we were in training camp, we were looking for a jump from these second year guys, right? And one of those players that I think a lot of people were intrigued about, maybe a little bit excited about to see it take a jump, and he was having a good preseason, having a good training camp, was kind of standing out to a lot of observers over there, and that was Devontae Wyatt. Devontae Wyatt, the most in terms of, I say the percentages because we know every game's going to have different numbers of snaps in the game, right? But the most he's played was actually just this past week. This Week 15 game against Tampa Bay. That's when he played 60% of the snaps. 60%. That's the most. His next highest, you've got to go back to Week 9, which was the Rams game when he had 59. So he's topped 60% just once. I'd like to see him more out there. And I get TJ Slayton. And it's so dependent on, and I get it, it's a 3-4 nickel. You take away a nickel and you got an extra defense. It's base defenses are really kind of obsolete at this thing. But, this is a first-round pick in his second year right now. And he's, on average, at best, getting on the field 50% of the time on defensive plays. Yeah. I struggle with that a little bit. I struggle with that a little bit. If you're going to invest a first-round pick on a guy, second year too, I get maybe rookie year, kind of easing him on in, breaking him in and that sort of stuff. Like Van Ness this year, he's, the highest that he's played is 49%, but that was earlier in the season. Just this past week, he was on the field for 42%. You can make an argument, rookie, easing him on in. But for Wyatt, to only hit 60% just once, I'd like to see that out there a little bit more. I'd like to see him out there a little bit more. So I think you can maybe make the case for that. But I'm not surprised, with the Quay Walker and Rashawn Gary. Now, Quay Walker's out there all the time. Quay Walker's out there all the time. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games where he's played every single snap. So he's out there. Snap counts, not an issue for him. But I think what the issue is, and Pete does a great job kind of breaking it down in a couple of examples from that game against Tampa Bay, is he being put in the right position to quote the late great Kevin Green, affect games? Is he being put in that position properly? And I think at times you could say no. I feel like he brings a unique skill set and athleticism that they haven't had at that inside linebacker spot for a long time. And I know Devondre Campbell won All-Pro a couple years ago, but I even think Quay Walker brings more to the table than what Campbell did a couple years ago. And I question, is Joe Barry utilizing that in the proper way, in the proper sense? Like, I feel like Quay Walker's a guy that, there's a lot of times, and this is where, you got to give Tampa credit, and Pete broke it down too, in those coverage ones when we saw Campbell lined up in coverage quite a bit, right? Quite a bit. And Pete made the note that Quay Walker's probably going to have better success in coverage than Campbell just because of Quay Walker's speed. Does that necessarily mean he's going to stop some of those pass plays from happening? No, but maybe it limits the big gains. So, again, putting him in a position to succeed or putting him in a position to help this defense. And I also feel like Quay Walker is a guy that you can bring up the middle on a blitz, bring out on the outside, utilizing him in different assets. One thing I do miss about this defense that we saw from a couple years ago, a few years ago, is mostly under Patton, but when they had Za'Darius and Preston and Rashawn Gary, and they were lining up Za'Darius over the middle, over the center. They'd have Preston and Rashawn on the edges, and then Za'Darius was like coming up the middle. I think you could do that with a guy like Quay Walker. He's got that speed. He's got that athleticism to do that. I'd like to see that kind of mixed in. We've seen it a few times this year. I don't want to say, we haven't seen it. We have. But, I mean, remember a few years ago when you'd see that lineup, you had, Kenny's up there, Za'Darius is standing right next to him, ready to go up the middle. Then you got Preston, Rashawn on the edge. I mean, you're collapsing that pocket. You're collapsing that thing right away. So, Quay Walker's getting the snaps, but I think there's a legit question. Are we seeing him being put into the best position to really be effective on this defense? And I think that's a legit question. I don't, he's got the talent to do more than just kind of roam the middle of the field, that second level on a defense. I want to see this guy being active. Like, when you think of an inside linebacker, you got names probably coming through your head right now, right? Fred Warner for the 49ers, or, if you want to go back a few years ago, like a Bobby Wagner or whoever, you're probably thinking of some inside linebackers who are breaking through the holes, getting after the quarterback, being run stuffers, helping out in coverage, multi-faceted, guys who could do a bunch of different things within that defense. I think Quay is a guy that can do that, but I don't think we've fully seen it yet. And then Rashawn, I think and I don't want to speak for a lot of you, but, maybe you're kind of looking at, Rashawn and the conversation we had yesterday about the amount of time he's been playing. He hit 70% for the first time in week 14, and that's the highest he's played. And that's like the minimum for a lot of the guys. And maybe that's where, for a lot of you who say, not utilizing Rashawn Gary the proper way, maybe it's because he's not playing more. And I get it. The first part of the season, first quarter of the season, he's on that snap count coming back from an ACL. But since post-bye, it's been evident that snap count is bye-bye, gone. But I think, and again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think, unless somebody has of a different mindset, I think that you'd probably like to see a guy like Rashawn Gary out there more, on the field more. I'll be curious. I fully believe that and again, not to keep bringing up his name, but Pete from PackersNews.com even kind of leads off with it, saying it, It's pretty evident that next year Green Bay is going to have a new defensive coordinator. But I will be curious to see, do they change that style? Do they stay with a 3-4? Do they go with a base 4-3? I don't know. Again, like the whole base defense thing is kind of gets overblown at points. But, you know, do they go with, hey, maybe Rashawn is better with the hand in the dirt, Lucas Van Ness better with his hand in the dirt, having those two guys on the edge. Then you can have a Kenny and a Devontae Wyatt, manning at defensive tackles there. Quay Walker playing more of a typical, I shouldn't say a typical middle linebacker. He might be more of a strong side or weak side because of what he can bring to the table, his uniqueness there. Isaiah McDuffie maybe part of that equation. I think Campbell's gone next year. So, I mean, if they do transition to a 4-3 style of defense, well, then you're probably going to have to look at adding another linebacker. I don't know. This is going to be, and we probably say this every single offseason for every single team out there. But once we get to that offseason for Green Bay, this is a make or break hire for LaFleur for whatever direction he decides to go into. He's got to hit this one. LaFleur is going to be looked at for a couple of things. Obviously, winning ball games is going to be the most important thing there. How he develops Jordan Love, which is trending upward, but the staff, the coaching staff he puts together as well. And this may be his last opportunity to get the defensive coordinator hire right. To be fair, he was Mike Patton was forced upon him a little bit there. But a lot of us didn't mind it at the time because, okay, rookie head coach, very young. You got a veteran guy who has been a former head coach, kind of ease him on that way. McVay did it, Wade Phillips and such. We've seen examples of it across the board. But LaFleur's got to hit this one. When that time comes in this offseason, he's got to hit this one. He's got to hit this defensive coordinator. And that's going to be interesting to me is because I feel like he knows it. He's going to know it, that I got to get this hire right. Because if I don't get this hire right and we still have the same issues on the defensive side, I'm out of a job then. So does he go with maybe a position coach that, hey, his stock is rising. It's time to be a defensive corner, but it's an unknown, right? It's an unknown. Or even, some other guys out there that have been on the college level, are they ready to make that jump to the NFL? Does he make a move like that where, hey, that ceiling might be pretty darn high. The potential is really high, but he's a big unknown and it could fall flat on your face. Or does he go a safer route and go with a guy who has experience, a former defensive coordinator, that sort of thing? I feel like he went after Jim Leonard turned him down, went a little bit with the safer route with his pick for Joe Barry, and it didn't work. So knowing that he's got maybe one more hire to get this right, does he go maybe a coach that's got experience coordinating? He kind of knows what to expect from that coach, kind of knows what he's getting into, or does he go the route of a up-and-coming coach that hasn't been a coordinator yet? That, to me, is going to be interesting to follow in this offseason. What route does LaFleur go? And does the mindset of him thinking, yeah, I got to get this one right, does that affect his decision? And we won't know until, at that point in time, we may not know the results of it until after a couple of years, but it's going to be interesting to see the route he goes. And even his mentor, Kyle Shanahan's kind of gone a bunch of different routes, right? When he first got the job with the 49ers, it was Robert Saleh. And Robert Saleh, initially, there was talk about whether he was going to get fired. Turned it around. He gets a head coaching job. D'Amico Ryans comes in. Hasn't really been, when he was there, no fall from that defense. He's got a head coaching job. Then, what does Kyle Shanahan do? goes completely outside the organization, brings in a veteran coach, defense coordinator, Steve Wilkes. I have no idea what path he's going to go through. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll finish up the first hour. We got some Brewers chat to get to as well. We'll hit that up coming up after these quick words. Last night, the Bucks picked up their 5th straight win to improve to 20-7 on the season with their 132-119 victory over the San Antonio Spurs. Damian Lillard putting up 40 points in the game, joining the 20,000-point club. Only the 8th active player right now with that club. In case you're wondering, Giannis is not in that club, but he will be. Currently, right now, Giannis is sitting at just a little over 17,000 career points, 17,076 to be exact. So Giannis will get there. Probably not this year because, well, I mean, he's about, if you look at his career averages through the season, total points, per season that he scored, it's about 1,900, 1,800, 2,000 a couple times. I mean, last year it was 1,959, and then 2002 and 2021, 2022. So it'll be a couple years yet before Giannis eclipses it or joins that 20,000 point club over there. So got a little bit there. Giannis has been etching his name in the record books, franchise record books, at least a lot so far at the beginning point of this season. But he'll join that 20,000 point club probably in the next couple of years here, maybe even at the back end of last year. So Damian also, he joined. He's the only player, or I should say him, LeBron, Steph Curry, and James Harden are the only players in NBA history to have 20,000 points, 5,000 assists, and 2,000 three-pointers. Now, I don't know if Giannis would join that. Giannis currently has 3,519 career assists. Three-pointers, he's got a ways to go to catch up for three-pointers, because right now he's got 504 that he has made throughout his career. Has attempted over 1,700, though. So, all right, just a couple minutes to the top. Say good morning to Morgan. Good morning, Morgan.
Hey, good morning. Do you know what you're getting this year? Are you a present peeker?
I'm not a peeker. I'm one that has to order for people, so I already know what they are.
Do you order for yourself? Are you one of those people?
Well, Grandma has me order my gifts.
That's easy.
So, yeah.
I like that. Yeah. So what are you going to be most happy about? Are you going to act surprised on Christmas?
I'm going to act surprised.
Okay.
One of them is I know what it is. One of them is a combo gift for me and Hudson, though, so I can't say in case.
In case there are little ears listening?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of fun when you get to share the gifts and you can promote yourself.
I'll tell you what it is after the air.
Okay, so, write it down.
I just know a lot of people write it down.
Write it down.
Because a lot of listeners are going to really want this.
Okay. All right, we'll let that sit on Santa's nice list. We have a little bit of Wednesday wildcard Christmas trivia, of course. We're coming up onto the big day. So pretty easy. Studies show that the average American gains how many pounds over the holiday?
20.
You're high, and you just held up what you're getting.
Yeah.
Santa's gonna get an award for that. That's a great gift.
For Hudson, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep. We'll
we'll share that with the class if they're not little ears listening. No, not 20 pounds. 3, that's nothing.
Oh, that is nothing.
Now, what's your favorite holiday food to put pounds on with? Like if you were saying
Taco
challenge accepted.
Taco dip.
Taco dip?
My aunt makes a taco dip every year. So.
That's year round though.
It's not the kind she makes. Not the typical taco dip that you think.
Okay, then
She only
what?
makes this around Christmas. It's very generic, but there's a lot of sour cream in there.
Oh, that's good every time of year. Yeah, you got to add like the red and green accoutrements too. In 2003, what film follows a hard-living mall Santa? Probably not in the lineup for the kids.
Is it a Bad Santa?
It is Bad
Yeah.
Santa, Billy Bob Thornton.
Mm-hmm.
In Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, what was Mr. Scrooge's first name?
Ebenezer.
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't hear that name anymore. Do you know any kids named Ebenezer?
No.
If I volunteer in city school, like there are some names that take a minute to try to figure out phonetically and
Yeah.
sound them out, but I've never
Best
seen.
Christmas Carol movie. Al Sim starred as Ebenezer Scrooge, 1950s.
Okay, some people say the Muppets version of A Christmas
I've
Carol.
never seen it.
You never
but-
have?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, the Muppets version is right up there. It's not bad. What is the Bing Crosby song that's the best-selling single ever for Christmas time? Although we don't have one this year.
Is it I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas?
It is. Are you on team snow? Like, do you kind of wish we had snow?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird not having snow,
Yep.
especially if you're like a snowmobiler or waiting for like,
Mhm.
something skiers, even getting out on the ice skating rinks. It's
Or
kind
even
of
ice
weird.
fishermen. I know some are
Oh
still
yeah.
going, but come on now.
Where up north? I've seen people pulling fish. Where has it been?
Not too far up north, but
Yeah.
just a little bit up there.
Yeah,
So,
I know a lot of people are looking to get out. How many reindeer are featured in the poem "'Twas the Night Before Christmas"?
8,
How did you know that?
because I'm smart when it comes to
No,
Christmas.
you're cheating.
No, I'm
You're
not.
cheating on
No,
Christmas?
here's the thing. I got 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Hudson, when he was doing cookies,
Mhm.
wanted to do just the same amount of reindeer that there are. So I already knew how many there were because he wanted to have 8 reindeer plus 1 for Rudolph.
Okay, in the song "We Wish You a Merry Christmas," what type of pudding is called for
Foot.
figgy?
Figgy.
Figgy
All right.
pudding.
Second half kicking off, or I should say second hour kicking off right now on this Wednesday morning of December 20th. Appreciate you tuning in wherever, however you may be tuning in from. Coming up, we're going to do some stock reports at about 7:45. You can play along with us. Try to not have Joe Barry or even Matt LaFleur in this. Try to think outside the box here a little bit with your stock reports, but you can text us whose stock is rising, whose stock is falling. We'll do a little business of sports coming up at 8:05. Seen a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot, a few people saying the Packers should trade Jair Alexander. We'll explain why that would actually do more harm than good in terms of a salary cap for next year. So we'll get to that at about 8:05. Let's kick off this hour doing some sports nuggies for the morning. 1946, Sugar Ray Robinson was crowned welterweight champion at Madison Square Garden. 1966, the NBA granted a franchise to Seattle. We've got, let's go. It was announced in 1993 that NBC would retain the rights to the National Football League's AFC package. 1998, Brett Favre became the first NFL player to throw at least 30 touchdown passes for 5 seasons. And in 2008, the Dallas Cowboys played their final game in Texas Stadium before moving to their new stadium in Arlington, Texas. I can't believe that stadium is that old already. 2009?
Yep.
Seems like it's only been about 10 years. But, no, probably time for Jerry Jones to build another one. So,
public money.
Yeah. So there you go. Those are just some sports nuggets for your Wednesday morning. Austin, morning, Dan. I just have a quick question for you. I want to see your thoughts on this. What if the Packers fire Matt LaFleur as head coach and make him the offensive coordinator instead, move Steno back down to the offensive line coach, and find a new head coach? Who is your top candidate for the head coach? Well, let's do this first. Matt LaFleur is not taking a demotion for the same team, right?
When was the last time that happened, if ever, that someone was and not talking like an interim coach?
Can't do an interim coach.
I can't think of that right now, but that seems like, wow.
I mean, I know of guys who have, been former coaches to come back to their teams years later as like a coordinator. Wade Phillips and Vance Joseph even, right? Vance Joseph was the Broncos coach for a little bit. Now he's a defensive coordinator over there under Sean Payton. So not taking a demotion to stay there,
right
over there.
Yeah.
I want to get to this here. This Matt LaFleur hate coming up here in a second. If that were to happen, just for a scenario like that, you got to have somebody that's going to want to run the same style of offense as Matt LaFleur is going to run, right? So it's got to be somebody that wants that style, believes in that style, is all aboard on that style. I'd have to think about that one for a little bit. I don't know off the top of my head. I'm assuming you're Austin, you're looking for guys who are going to be promoted to head coach or something like that. So, the reason why I say that style, like Ben Johnson for the Lions, right? It's going to be a hot name, offensive coordinator for the Lions. Runs a different style of offense, though. So, I mean, if you're going to have LaFleur be your offensive coordinator, you're probably going to have to find a head coach that is willing to do that style of offense. So I'd have to think about that for a little bit. But Matt LaFleur is not getting fired, right? I mean, can we just put that out there? He's not getting fired.
No.
He's not getting fired. He's not. Okay? He's not getting fired. Are we back to Mike McCarthy era now, where it's all pointing fingers at Matt LaFleur? Who's got here's my thing, Lucas, okay? You're an outsider.
Yes.
Observing this whole ordeal thing. You got to probably be chuckling at all the hate now going towards this. But I feel like LaFleur is in this time circle here where people are not giving him credit for the wins he's had through, in the first part of his career, because that's Aaron Rodgers. That was all Aaron Rodgers. Yet those same fans are glad Aaron Rodgers isn't on the team because he's washed up. Oh, he was done. It's time to move on. So who gets the credit then at that point?
Not Brian Gutekunst, because he also would get the flack.
Everybody stinks in that organization.
Definitely not Mark Murphy, because he sucks. obviously. He doesn't, but yeah, who's got like a really good Q rating on that team right now? Is it Jordan Love? And even then, I mean, it's like almost by default. I don't know. Rashawn Gary, is he gonna get all the credit now?
No, because you got some saying too that he's not worth the contract he got.
Okay,
and I think that's because he's not playing. I mean, we did the breakdown yesterday. The most percentage of snaps he's played is 70%, and that was just 2 weeks ago. Max Crosby and these guys are doing 80, 90, even 100% of the snaps.
Jaron Reed. I think
Reed.
He's probably the closest. Jaden Reed, sorry. He's probably the closest to a 100% at this point. I mean, I know it's pointing out the ridiculousness of this. He's not to McCarthy-esque levels. I do recall, and we've talked about this before, that there were some questionable play calls in like the NFC Championship game and such. Wow, shades of Mike McCarthy, but that was happening with Matt LaFleur as well. But I don't sense it's gotten anywhere close to the McCarthy level. Plus, you don't have, at least as far as we know it now, a quarterback so talented that it seems as though the coach might be potentially inhibiting that quarterback's ability to bring the team to a Super Bowl. Not yet. I mean, maybe in 3 years, it's very obvious, but not for sure, because maybe Love is not as good as Rodgers and LaFleur is better than McCarthy in public perception, at least.
Yeah, it bugs me when you got people saying he's lost the locker room. If you're not in that locker room, you don't know if he's lost the locker room or not. I'm sorry, right? Facts are facts.
Right.
Unless you're in there, you don't know that. And if you're gonna base stuff off of Twitter, that's a dangerous slope too.
Yeah.
Very dangerous.
Yeah. Especially given that not everyone is still left on Twitter/X at this point, so you really don't know what you're getting there. Not that a Facebook comment thread is any better.
Yeah. Matt LaFleur, I said it in the first hour, this mean he's got to get the next hire right for defensive coordinator. There's no doubt about it. He has got to get that hire right, and that is going to be a job-defining hire. He's got to get it right. There's no doubt about it. But to completely say that he should be fired for this year alone, I think is incredibly short-sighted, because what has been, or if we rewind at the beginning of the year, what was the number one question mark about this team heading into the season, Luke? What was the number one question about this team?
It was Jordan Love.
It was Jordan Love. And who is tasked to make sure that Jordan Love was going to be the future starter for this team? Matt LaFleur.
Yeah.
And right now, from all signs, Jordan Love looks pretty solid, doesn't he? Looks pretty solid.
He's a bum now?
So, I mean, I get it. You got everybody. A lot of people are frustrated about the Joe Barry thing. I totally get it. That's a shortcoming of his. I think he made a mistake by not bringing in another veteran after losing Jerry Gray to kind of have that natural progression if he had to make a move within season. That's definitely, but is that fireable worthy right now? I don't think that's fireable worthy for all the good stuff that he's done.
Yeah. I mean, the 35,000 foot perspective I have, not being a Packers fan, is no. Gosh, no, don't fire Matt LaFleur. Just as an NFL observer. I'm like, no, of course not.
Well, maybe as a Vikings fan, you'd want them to
I know,
fire,
I was thinking that as I'm saying that, like, well, as a Vikings fan, sure, go ahead, do that. I mean, this is not like you're firing a future 5-time coach of the year, obviously. Wow, not that level of stupidity. But no, like, it's not that he's not that bad. I'm sorry, he isn't. No, I mean, he's had some not great moves. I mean, I kind of guess, okay, I'll put my fandom back into this. Who would I rather have as coach right now? Would I rather have Matt LaFleur or Kevin O'Connell? They got different approaches for sure. And I was reading a story this morning from Kevin Seifert talking about how Ty Chandler's taken a long time to get carries in the running game for the Vikings. But a lot of that has to do with Kevin O'Connell's patience. How he had patience on Ed Donatel, the infamous shell defense. And he had patience with Alexander Madison. That's his thing. I think that's to the detriment of the team. That's probably one of the knocks. So is that to the point where I'd go, well, I'd rather have someone like Matt LaFleur who's going to make quicker moves? I don't know. I'm kind of at a coin toss at this point between the two, but I don't think either is fireable right now. I can think of way worse coaches by NFL standards. So no, don't, in a general sense, don't fire Matt LaFleur. He hasn't done anything to deserve that.
No. I'm reminded of, remember when Sean Payton, when he was with the Saints, it seemed like he changed defensive coordinators every year. That trend, like it was that run where I think they went 3 years in a row of 7-9, and they had a different defensive coordinator. Rob Ryan was defensive coordinator 1 year. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones on there. Then finally, that Dennis Allen towards the end, and then ended up replacing Sean Payton there. But it was like every year it seemed like after the Greg Williams fiasco with the Saints, that Sean Payton was trying to find a new defensive coordinator every single year.
Yeah.
And there's something, I think there is something to continuity. That's a guy who doesn't have patience, obviously, with Sean Payton over there. But, he was trying to find somebody to replace Greg Williams, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So
he didn't get the flack. Well, he's Sean Payton.
Yeah, he's Sean Payton, so he doesn't get the flack. We're back to that whole ordeal. What does Sean Payton have over everybody at this point in time, right? What does he got?
Tapes.
Yeah, tapes of what?
I have no idea, but he's got tapes. Lots and lots of tapes.
I want to bring up the listings of defensive coordinators from the Saints to see if I can find that.
Hey, look at how Sean Payton has turned around the Broncos this year. Has Matt LaFleur done the same thing with the Packers this year?
No. Steve Spagnuolo was for a year. He's doing pretty decent with the Chiefs now. Then it was Rob Ryan. Then it was Dennis Allen. Yeah, he went through that run of 3. Yeah. After the oh goodness, I forgot Ron Zook was defensive coordinator over there for a year too. So that was, I think, Mike McCarthy, I believe, was the offensive coordinator at the same time over there too. So yeah. Interesting.
I think the standards are just different based on the fan bases and the expectations of the teams. It's as simple as that.
And so we got 3 more games left. If Green Bay matches their wins from last year, 8-9, did that exceed a lot of people? I know you had them in the playoffs, but for a lot of people, would that exceed their expectations? Probably.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, does it differ between national prognosticators, a lot of whom had the Packers
6 wins, 5 wins, that sort of thing.
And then Packers fans, and I think I was paying so much attention to the national perspective that I lost the perspective of Packers fans going into the season. Like, well, did we ever did you ever feel a consensus on the number of wins the Packers are going to win based on Packers fans?
I think it was around that 7-8 mark.
Okay.
7-8 mark. So, they're just a couple away from that.
Yeah. So
what if they win out and they get 9 and they have a winning record?
Fire Matt LaFleur? Really? Because what? Now does your perspective change at all if the Panthers somehow, some way embarrass them? Yeah, and I don't think it's possible for the Panthers to embarrass anybody. But let's say it did.
If the Panthers embarrass Green Bay, then I think we do have another conversation at hand. Absolutely. Embarrass, by like getting mopped.
30-7. The players are healthy too, so you can't say, oh, Jordan Love got injured and 3 of the wide receivers got injured, and that's the reason why.
Right.
One of those, did he lose the team kind of senses. But I think that applies in any certain situation if it seems like the coach has lost the team. Again, there's like a 0.0001% chance of that happening. I think the Bears could very well be competitive, not the Panthers.
I'm actually a little bit worried about that Chicago game that I'm going to.
Yeah, they're trending up, and the Packers are kind of mid right now. So, yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility, but I'm not worried about the Panthers game from the Packers' perspective. Even I know the Panthers are on a hot streak right now.
The interesting thing to me this offseason, what LaFleur does with the defense, he's making a change. I'm willing to put money down that we're going to have a new defensive coordinator next year.
No way he said the things over the season that he said and then keeps Joe Barry.
Right, exactly. I'll be interested to see, does he go knowing, because I got to imagine he knows too, that this is a hire that could potentially affect his job status, future-wise. Because if he gets it wrong again, then, hot seat-ish a little bit. Does he go with a guy, and again, I don't know who will all be available, but does he go with a retread, if you will, or a guy who's got experience coordinating defenses, or does he go with a young, up-and-coming, maybe position coach, but their stock is so high, but it is an unknown? Knowing that his own job might be in the line, which way will he go? I think will be interesting to see.
Yeah. Is there anyone on your radar right now?
Yeah. The guy that he's going to be calling plays against this weekend. Iji Evero. But he's going to get head coaching interviews again this year.
Yeah, Evero's one of the top choices to be hired anyway. So, no, he's not coming to Green Bay.
I would say not.
Really?
I wouldn't say not. I mean, he was a finalist a couple of years ago.
You think he's going to take another coordinator job? I mean, okay, like if he doesn't get hired as head coach.
Right. It just depends on the amount of openings out there, too.
Right.
We know Washington's going to be open. Well, I mean, Raiders are open, but they might just promote now.
It sure seems like, I mean, the players there really are liking Antonio Pierce. I can't remember who wrote it up, but someone I might have been ESPN was saying, maybe you read the same thing, that
don't pull another Rich Bisaccia sort of thing.
Right. That Mark Davis has got to learn the lesson on this and roll with it.
May not be the big name hire out there, but
come on.
Right.
Let's go with that. But other than that,
and Ezero isn't taking the Panthers job. I don't even know if that would be offered him, to be honest with you.
I think he might want to get the heck out of there, and that might improve the chances of going to Green Bay.
I mean, they didn't even name him interim head coach for crying out loud. So
right. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be available though. That's the thing.
Yeah, that if he's available, to me, this screams of a couple years ago when Rich Bisaccia was available, and the Packers' biggest need was a special teams coordinator. And what they do, they opened the bank to bring him in. I wouldn't be surprised if they do that again if that particular defensive coordinator or maybe a couple guys are out there.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised. Whether that's the right move or not, I don't know. But if there is a guy out there that is widely regarded as a great defensive coordinator, great defensive mind, I wouldn't be surprised if they open up the bank a little bit more to bring him in.
Too bad for the Packers' sake, and I do say this as I'll be perfectly blunt. As a Vikings fan, I'm so happy it worked out this way. Brian Flores wasn't available 1 year later, or the Packers had that really had that opportunity.
Well, I mean,
earlier.
He might get some head coaching looks too.
Oh, right, and he might be after 1 year and gone. I fully recognize that as a possibility, but man, I am thankful that at least for one season, my team got Brian Flores. I mean,
it shows that you actually have some players, right?
Right, but the thing is, the talent isn't that great, but it was manageable. It was coachable. And evidently in a way that Ed Donatel could not figure out, but that Brian Flores can, which I think speaks a lot more to Brian Flores, honestly. Well, okay, Brian Flores went east, went right over to Green Bay. I can't see that happening unless the Packers, you talk about breaking the bank, making him like the highest paid defensive coordinator in history. Plus, he'd have to do things. He'd also have to have a sense of wanting to leave Minnesota for a rival. He doesn't have Vikings ties, but I don't think he's going to do that. Let's say he went. How much better is the Packer defense next year with Brian Flores as defensive coordinator?
I think there's an upgrade.
Like how much of an upgrade?
Well,
We're talking top 5 defense?
Top 10.
Okay. So that's still good.
Yeah. I think there would be a little bit of adjustment, kind of like how Minnesota, I mean, beginning of the year, it wasn't the greatest, right? It took a little bit.
Nope, it did. It took learning, for sure.
Yeah.
It took adjustments.
I do know one guy, he's not going to be available. But I feel like if he were going to be available after this year, he would be the new. The one hire he can't make it. I shouldn't say can't, but Brandon Staley, if he hires him as defensive coordinator, Packers fans might vomit and revolt. And I did see some say, well, he's a better coordinator than he is coach. He didn't have a lot of experience being a coordinator either, so
that was pretty quick.
But if he was available, and he's not going to be, but I would almost bet money he would be Matt LaFleur's pick is Robert Saleh.
Huh. That would be so ironic.
But they're going to run it back with that whole thing because they're throwing up this year as a lost cause because of Aaron. So. But I feel like, what if Aaron played this year and still was bad and they move on from Robert Saleh? I could see Matt LaFleur trying to bring his BFF over.
Or, like, don't know. I could see Salah going to the Packers. I could see the Jets going, yeah, we want to run it back, but there's enough we didn't like, or we're gonna try to bring in some. I don't know.
Make Aaron more happy and name Nathaniel Hackett as head coach.
Oh my gosh. This is getting into Elmo with the fire GIF territory.
This is legit. The inmates are running the asylum.
Gosh.
This is the Joker running Arkham Asylum right now. If that were to happen, it won't.
Aaron Rodgers averages 55 passes a game, and the Jets somehow go like 6-11.
And he gets stacked about 9 times a game too.
Wow. Burn it all down.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
Jets, Jets. Yeah, I do like the idea of Salah to, well, really any team, but to the Packers would be good. And I think there's about a 30% chance he's gone, 35% chance he's gone from the Jets.
This year?
After this season, yeah.
I'd say 5.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah. It's just, he has seemed shaky enough. I could see them making a coaching change. That's the one change.
It's the thing. They've got to talk to Aaron first. Do you want to piss off Aaron?
Right, because he's their, you say this sarcastically, but it's kind of true. He's their de facto general manager right now.
He is.
Huh.
He 100% is. And, I know he said yesterday that he could see himself playing for more than a couple of years. Would it surprise anybody if they made a move that he didn't like and then he changes his tune a little bit? Nope.
No.
It wouldn't surprise me. Not in the least bit. Any other circumstance, Nathaniel Hackett would have been fired this year. And he'd be fired before in the offseason. And I don't think he's going to be because of Aaron Rodgers. Aaron has the full control of that Jets franchise.
I cannot wait, not for a book, because why would you want one? I cannot wait for like the 20,000 word oral history of the Aaron Rodgers New York Jets era to come out in like 2026.
That or like the investigative podcast.
Yeah. Something like that. And like, yeah, they won't have Don Van Natta on it because it's not too business-y, not too, yeah. But so, again, like a Seth Wickersham. Someone's going to write that, and it's going to be juicy. It's going to be fascinating. It's going to be largely irrelevant to our actual fan bases, but still, we're going to be drawn to it like a moth to fire whenever that comes out, and it's coming. There's a lot left to be written in this story.
Pat will do the podcast.
Who would?
Pat.
Oh, gosh. Would he?
Oh, yeah. If Aaron approached him and said, "Hey, let's do a podcast," Pat would do it. 100%.
But what if this does not involve this? This is the real story that does not involve Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, if Aaron's not involved, then no.
Then McAfee's not.
But then here's the thing: Aaron will say, "No, that's not all true." So I want
Of course he would.
So
that's why I want the non-Aaron Rodgers version. Unless McAfee and Aaron Rodgers have falling out, which I doubt, but
Pat's paying him, so it's okay.
Probably, yeah.
Still,
that you're going to read whatever comes out, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
We all will.
100%. So,
boy.
But, yeah, he ain't getting fired. And I don't think he should be fired. Matt LaFleur, going back to that.
Agreed, yeah.
I don't think he should.
That's not, I'd say this as an NFL person, not a Viking person. Don't fire Matt LaFleur. That's not a smart move. And I don't think they're going to do that anyway.
No. All right, let's switch gears up. Let's talk a little baseball here. Corbin Burns, we got a little bit of an update on his status from Ken Rosenthal from The Athletic. We'll hit that up before we get to some stock reports coming up after these quick words. One more note on the on Matt LaFleur. I don't want to keep beating this thing down. I feel like until he wins maybe a Super Bowl or anything like that, he's going to have the label that he struggles in big games because I think people still have the Tampa Bay NFC Championship game in their mind.
Oh yeah,
because of that decision whether to go for it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to, even though he had won one, but similar to McCarthy and the Seattle NFC Championship game, I think he almost has to win another one to almost remove that stigma yet from 2014, even though he had won one in 2010, 2011. But it is interesting to me, and kind of the same maybe for Aaron, because, after 2020, it was Aaron can't win big games anymore, right? Because he targets Devontae too much or that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like until LaFleur and the Packers, win an NFC Championship, Super Bowl, or whatever, it's kind of the same with Shanahan a little bit. Kyle Shanahan, getting praised. He hasn't won a Super Bowl. He's lost the Super Bowl. He's been there. But the one Super Bowl he was offensive coordinator at, I mean, sorry, Atlanta fans, 28-3.
Yeah.
Until they actually get that one, and then it won't last that long because really you make one more mistake after that, even though if you have a championship, you're going to be labeled you can't win a big one consistently.
That's fair. I mean, Kyle Shanahan's getting tons of praise right now, but that's out there, and we're going to hear that. If the 49ers right now, I would say today would be the favorite to win the championship.
Yep.
But they don't, and if there isn't something else like, hey, bad injury luck for the quarterback position strikes again, barring that, if they just straight up lose and they lose without it being a really, really good game, yeah, I think that comes back again. It's dormant, but it's very likely to return.
Mm-hmm.
It's not over. By the way, one quick note back to the other coaching thing we were discussing. Your thoughts on the New York Post back cover this morning?
I did not see it.
Oh boy, give it a look.
Okay, I'll just let me Google it to give me the.
Yeah, and I saw it from Jimmy Traina from SI, one of the few actual legit people at Sports Illustrated still.
Yeah. So pretty much what we were just talking about, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you looking at it right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Judge Aaron,
yeah.
Rodgers rules Jets trio deserves another season. So, Yep, there you go. Told you.
Oh yeah, and the graphics on it are classically cheesy New York tabloid. Folks, go Google it. Do what we did. Find it. Yeah. Especially love at the bottom. Cutlets makes pizza piece packed.
Yeah.
This is so New York tabloid.
Yeah. Who's more loved in New York, Rodgers or Jimmy Cutlets? I know it's Tommy Cutlets.
By the way,
whatever.
Props to Tommy DeVito for following through. I was getting like, oh my gosh, this is the classic arc. Rise and fall. In case anyone didn't know, did you talk about
yeah? So his agent was trying to get a little bit more money out of the pizzeria because of Tommy Cutlets. Hey, rise and fame, and DeVito still showed up. So
regardless,
was getting some bad PR.
Yeah, I'm glad he did that. That's good. Mm-hmm. Props to him for doing that. But that back page cover, they do some art. Shall I?
That looks like what I would do in paint in high school or middle school. Coming up with that graphic.
The head size to body proportions are just it's subtle, but that's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Well played, New York Post.
Yeah. So, and the fact that he put it out there already too is like his way of telling Woody Johnson ownership, don't make a move. So, yeah.
Oh boy.
All right. Quickly, Ken Rosenthal on the Corbin Burns situation. Is he going to be dealt? Is he not? We've heard that now he's not. He had an interesting little nugget from sources who told him that Mark Ananasio essentially does not want to trade Corbin Burns because of him being afraid of backlash, similar to when they traded Josh Hader, and during the season, during that playoff, right before, was it right before? Yeah, right before the trade deadline. So my question is, do you, as a Brewers fan, appreciate Mark Anasio maybe quote stepping in and say no, we're not trading him because he was afraid of that backlash, or would you rather have Matt Arnold do his job, and if he gets a really good deal, trade away Corbin Burns?
I guess it depends on how well Mark Attanasio has assessed the reaction of the clubhouse, where the Hader move was probably, at least at the time, the right thing to do. But
you think it was right to trade him?
Maybe at the time. That's why I emphasize.
You think it was the right time to trade him at that time?
No. Only from a perspective of who could I get? I'm trying to put myself in David Stern's mindset of, okay, what assets can I get? He's looking very analytically at this, but fail to assess how the reaction of the players could potentially be detrimental to the performance of the team, which usually does not happen, but by many accounts did, and probably was enough. Again, Brewers finished one game out of the playoffs. Hader, again, yes, of course, Josh Hader had not that great of an end of the season, so I guess it's somewhat questionable if Josh Hader had stayed with the Brewers. Would he have given them extra saves? Maybe actually no. But
or it could have been the same effect why the Brewers stunk too. Josh Hader may be a little surprised and shooken up and all that sort of stuff too.
Right.
We don't know.
There's a lot of factors, right? But it's that assessment that Mark Atanasio, I guess, maybe has a better sense. And yeah, in retrospect, I don't think the trade was that great of a trade for the Brewers. At the time, I see what Stearns was doing. In retrospect, could have done probably better with that. But if Mark Atanasio is stepping in to say we're not doing this because we don't want something similar, he better have a pretty good pulse. I hope he's not just going, wow, we got a big backlash in the clubhouse a couple of years ago. I'm not going to do that again. Well, also the players could be a little different. They may have a different assessment of the whole thing. And then that is tying the ability of Matt Arnold to make a move. I think that's ownership involvement that gets a little squeamish. So I hope Atanasio knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, I don't know if he's kind of becoming more that fan in him is coming out. You know what I mean? As an owner, like
going all Steve Cohen now,
yeah, sort of thing.
Oh, boy.
You know, and I know Atanasio. There's always been those stories like, hey, if a free agent needs to be signed, you know, Scott Boras just called Mark Atanasio, and that's why they got Jeff Suppan and all those bad signings over there too. So, you know, I still feel like Corbin Burnes is going to start the season, and they'll see what it is at the trade deadline and such, and hopefully he's healthy and such. If they are playing bad and they try to trade him, I also do think it's a dangerous slope to play if you're worried about fan reaction in a business sense from a team. I get it. You're worried, and you don't want to have to deal with negativity and all that too. And let's face it too, it's a money factor, right? You throw out Corbin Burnes on opening day, you're probably going to sell a few more tickets when Corbin Burnes is pitching as opposed to not, right?
Yeah.
It's a money thing over there too. So now if he was a big money spender, maybe that's not the biggest, issue out there, but
right.
He needs a little bit more income coming in, and Corbin Burnes provides that.
A bit. Yeah, I don't think it's enough to make that big of a difference, but I mean, at least in a short-term sense, it's net positive. Financially. Buster Olney did a rundown on the most recent Baseball Tonight pod. I think this is like a couple days ago. Was going through the lists of like who's most likely to be moved, or the percentages that certain players are going to be traded. Like Dylan Cease is 100%. He is going to go to some other team, for example. I was asked Corbin Burnes, 10%.
Mm-hmm.
And Olney's got enough sources. He would know. There wasn't really any follow-up on that, but that's my take, that I would say you can essentially take it to the bank. And Corbin Burnes will be a Brewer come opening day.
And I feel like the difference between Burnes and Hader at this point in time now, it's been talked about so much that if Corbin does get traded, how many people are actually going to be surprised?
Probably not many.
Whereas when Hader, given they were still a playoff team and all that, that caught everybody by surprise. Burnes gets traded now, I think you're going to have fans be like, yeah, they'll be a little disappointed. They'll be upset. But they've been hearing about it so much that, yeah, we kind of were expecting it at some point.
Plus, I would imagine Brewers fans are probably a little more sour on the team right now post Craig Counsell departure. They're expecting the Cubs are going to leapfrog them automatically, and that this would be another step in those directions. And I know Corbin Burnes is not being traded to the Cubs. Can't fathom that happening. Um, so yeah, it wouldn't be a stunner. I think it would get a lot of grumbling, but it wouldn't be the oh my gosh, what did you just do? That you can then extrapolate to wow, you cost the team a playoff spot. I mean, alternate universe, then if they do 2 games better than the 2022 National League champion Philadelphia Phillies, don't make the playoffs.
And I also feel like too there is a little bit of Mark that wants to stick it to the Cubs this year and try to beat them at least for 1 year with
Yeah.
Council's first year.
Oh, I'm sure he does. Now,
So-
will he be able to is the other story.
Right.
The Cubs
He
have not
has a better chance if Corbin's on his team than not.
for
so.
sure. Now if the Brewers are well under 500 come July, I think
Then
it
you
goes
trade
different.
him off.
Of course,
Yep.
but that's the smart move anyway. Then forget about the Cubs. At this point, you got to save your franchise. I also don't think they're going to be that bad. The Cubs have not upgraded a ton. Now, I don't think they necessarily needed to upgrade a ton. They've got enough young talent that's developing, even though they're going to almost definitely lose Cody Bellinger. Though, if I'm a Brewers fan, I'm worried if Bellinger comes back, even if maybe this is a blip of a return over the last year or so. But I don't think the Cubs suddenly got so much better that they're now like co-NL leaders with the Braves and Dodgers.
No.
I
Not
was
at
kind of
this point in
expecting
time.
that, and no. And
Yeah.
I know we got January to go, but not that fast.
Yeah, not at this point. So, all right, let's take a quick break, and then we've got some stock reports to finish up the second hour. A couple of you sending in your stock reports. We'll get to those as well. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. All right, it's time to do some stock reports. I'm going to let you go first, stock faller, because my stock faller is probably going to piss off a lot of people. But you know what? It's Christmas, so why not make people upset? So,
wow, already getting into the grievances.
Yeah. So I'll let you go first because mine might take just a little bit.
All right, mine are fairly generic this week. They're more national, but that's the best ones I could really come up with. I mean, the stock faller for the week are the Eagles. They're not playing as well. I think their defense has caught up with them. Hurts being ill has not helped. I would
finally flagging Kelsey for moving the ball ahead and all that. Yeah.
Wow.
Take them down.
Yeah, but I don't think they're going to repeat as NFC champions at this point. They seem to be trending wrong at the wrong time. I try to pay more attention to what's going on late. Now, granted, the Eagles, I don't think they looked that great to even start the season. I know their DVOA numbers weren't matching their record, but you didn't even really need that to see that. But they're definitely trending downward right
now. My stock faller. Here we go. All right, I might upset some people here. Rich Bisaccia.
Whoa! Go for it. Why?
Rich Bisaccia, a couple reasons. The most penalized special teams unit in all the NFL, Green Bay Packers. Promoted, added title to assistant head coach for this year. If you've been watched any games, catch it on TV or been at the games, you see Rich right into Matt LaFleur's ear a lot more this year, right? They're right next to each other. They're going over things a lot this year. For all the flack that LaFleur is getting, questionable decisions, all that sort of stuff, if Rich Bisaccia is his assistant head coach and is his right-hand man, shouldn't he also deserve some of that flack too? Mm-hmm. And if we're criticizing, if there's some people getting tired about the whole excuse that this team is young, they're not young anymore, they got to stop doing mistakes and all that sort of stuff. You got to have that same type of energy towards the special teams unit. You can't say, well, they got a bunch of penalties because they're young, yet not use that excuse for the other side of the ball at the defense or the offensive side, right? Rich Bisaccia shouldn't get extra special treatment for all that. So with his title as assistant head coach, with him being attached at the hip with LaFleur, helping him with some of these decisions, helping him out in other areas, and how this special teams unit has played, if you're going to use that same type of energy towards the offense and even parts of the defense, you got to use that same type of energy to the special teams coordinator, and that's Rich Bisaccia. It's only fair, right?
Yep.
It's only fair. Stock faller, Rich Bisaccia.
DVOA, by the way, I'm looking it up right now. Packers are 11th offensively, 29th defensively, and 27th in special teams.
Okay.
Which, by the way, special teams does not contribute is not as relevant to DVOA, as Aaron Schatz has made a point of saying that over time. Nevertheless, that's the ranking. They suck. Not good in the NFC North in general. Bears are 23rd. Vikings are 29th.
Yeah.
Lions are 20th. Just bad special teams. Subpar special teams across the division.
Yeah. So I know I'm not even going to check the text right now because I'm sure there's going to be people yelling at me. But,
yeah. But
I'm sure there's some fans probably that would want Rich Bisaccia as head coach of this team. But I mean, if he's assistant head coach and he's helping out LaFleur more this year, and the unit he's got going on, are they doing well? They're not.
It's not the hottest take in the world. I see where you're coming from on this one. Something to watch. My stock riser, by the way, the Buffalo Bills. Again, pretty generic, but yeah, they're more than a game. They're trending in the right direction. As long as I keep using that stat, they're up to 3rd in DVOA, behind San Francisco and Baltimore. Side note, we got a DVOA bowl this weekend. San Francisco, Baltimore, 1 versus 2 rarely happens. One of the more recent examples.
This will decide who is the best team after Week 16 of the regular season.
And then we don't need to play any more games. This is the Super Bowl here, right now.
Anything short of that, come February, we're not watching the Super Bowl.
I'm out.
Yep.
No, I got better things to do that weekend. for example, like the Kansas City. Remember the crazy Monday nighter, Kansas City and the Rams?
Yeah, was that at the Mexico game where they're just like there was like 40-some to 40-some? You know?
That was at the LA Coliseum.
Oh, was that the LA one?
Okay, the 54-51 game.
Yeah.
That was one of those DVOA bowls, 1 versus 2 in the latter part of the regular season. So it's got to be like excellent matchup. If you look at some of those historically, you go, oh yeah, like when Green Bay played Denver in the 96 season, remember that Monday nighter, which Green Bay completely annihilated the Broncos? That was one of those games. So the Bills are not part of any of that right now, but they're third and they're moving up and they're playing much better and they took care of the Cowboys. I think maybe the Bills are developing a different identity, which that's good. If they're making adjustments as the season's gone along to find a way to stay competitive, that's good. I don't know if that's enough to get to the Super Bowl, but at least the Bills, I feel really comfortable about that they're going to make the playoffs and could actually maybe do a little something in the playoffs.
It's going to be tough. I mean, they're out on the outside looking in right now.
They are, but I think they get there.
I think there are going to be some teams that are going to beat up on each other. That'll help Buffalo. I will say, one of my pet peeves, or one of my sports, or one of the sports lingos or phrases out there that it gets so overblown. The team you don't want to face. Green Bay was that 2 weeks ago. Buffalo's now that got that title.
Rams, Rams are kind of at that point now too.
Right. I think the Rams are quietly. You want to talk about a guy who's doing a good job, Sean McVay over there. Just saying.
Yes.
He's doing a pretty solid job over there with that group.
Absolutely. The Rams right now are my team you don't want to face in the playoffs, presuming that they make the playoffs.
I'm really going to make Packers fans mad now too. Stock riser. Chicago Bears.
Oh, the Bears.
I know they lost, but hey, they're playing better as of the last few weeks, aren't they?
Yes.
You got to give them credit.
Justin Fields is turning around.
I saw a poll the other day which surprised me. It was from a Chicago radio station that it was about 56%, I think it was. They want Matt Eberflus back, which surprised the heck out of me. That Chicago fans were like, you got to give them credit. They're playing better. That January game, that ain't going to be no gimme, I don't think, for Green Bay.
Is there a chance the Packers fall to last place?
You know what? If Green Bay's out of the, I wouldn't mind that now because you're starting to get it more about the Jets coming to Lambeau next year. So if Green Bay falls
only to shut down the hype machine,
right? I'm just like, I don't really want to deal with that next year. I'm not ready for that. I don't want to see that. So, I mean, if it were that, because, I mean, unless Minnesota loses a couple games here against Detroit,
it's possible.
Green Bay. By the way, New York Times, if you're still holding on to a playoff hope for Green Bay, New York Times simulator, Green Bay wins out 95% chance they get in.
Okay.
So
I think that's a fair assessment.
Which I will say, I did play with the playoff machine simulator because why not? That's, tradition unlike any other at this time of year.
Right.
I picked all the games, how I thought they would go, but also with the caveat of Green Bay winning out, and they do get in as a 6th seed, which I thought was kind of interesting. So
there is a lot of mediocrity in terms of records.
Oh, yeah.
Now. My gosh. I mean, I can't believe I'm also saying this. There is a possibility, if everything plays out just right, that the 5th seed could play a 10-win NFC South winner. I didn't think that was going to happen, but maybe so. That's kind of opposite mediocrity, but our concerns of like a 13-4 team playing a 6-11 NFC South win, it's not going to be anything remotely like that. But yeah, there's a lot of meh right now.
I will say the other stock risers I had just really quick is the Colts and the Texans. It really looks like they nailed their head coach hires.
Yes.
Shane Steichen and D'Amico Ryans over there. I mean, Houston was a franchise that was on the down. They got their draft picks right. It looks like their first 2 picks. They got the head coach pick right. The Colts, with all the drama, beforehand about Jonathan Taylor wanting out. Then you got, Anthony Richardson hurt. You got Gardner Minshew. Those 2 clubs sitting there at 8-6, now tied with Jacksonville. That, to me, the Coach of the Year award has turned so much into the MVP. Those 2 guys, and I'd even throw Kevin Stefanski in the equation.
Yeah.
I'd throw those guys in as coach of the year candidates instead of who's probably going to win, which is going to be either like Harbaugh or Shanahan.
I'm thinking Ryan's probably was the leader in the non super top coach realm. As the Colts have continued to prove themselves as time has gone along, I think Steichen has risen up, and the Browns kind of quietly moved along. There's been so many times where they're done. But they're above 500. They clinched
Joe Flacco 2.0 is going to lead them to the postseason.
I loved how consecutive highlights. I was watching on NFL primetime, and after Flacco, a couple of his late game throws, and he is having such a blast. He's like, yeah, wow, on the field after he makes the throws. Like he's living his best life right now. Like, dude, I'm out here and I'm throwing winning passes, and I'm 40. Like, this is incredible. That's a tough one between all three.
I can't wait for that Browns. Oh, we got to take a break here, man. We ran out of time here.
Oh, okay. WAYY, Eau Claire. Hi, guys.
Final hour on this Wednesday morning, making the turn here. See, we're just like Pat McAfee Show. We don't know when to take breaks at the proper time there, Lucas.
So where's Aaron Rodgers on Tuesdays on this show?
He didn't take my $5 offer to come on here. With interest. No, I'm just kidding.
It adds up to $700 million. It's just way deferred.
Exactly. So, oh, man, we're going to get back to some hoops talk coming up a little bit later on. Bucks picking up their 5th straight win last night over the Victor Wembanyama-less San Antonio Spurs. We had Damian Lillard joining the 20,000 career point club last night with his 40-point performance. Marquette dropping, getting upset by Providence last night. First conference game for both those ball clubs, and Providence getting the edge last night. So we'll talk some hoops coming up here a little bit. I haven't gotten too much flack so far on my stock risers and stock fallers. So
maybe you know what you're talking about.
Even C-Bomb saying spot on. His stock is falling.
Wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So let's to answer your question, Mark, too, DVOA, not DBOA, but DVOA. That's it's a metric that Lucas uses quite a bit. A lot of people use it across the NFL too. You hear that a lot in like special teams, offense, and defensive rankings.
Right.
I know that's your favorite, DVOA, isn't it?
Yeah.
Football Outsider still do that?
Aaron Schatz does it. He took it to a different site.
Okay.
But it's still his thing.
I can still picture his Twitter profile picture.
Yeah, with that little the cartoon sort of thing. Yeah. So it's still his thing. It's just that it was like FTN. So if you just Google it and you'll be able to find the news site with it.
It's another analytical sort of measurement, right?
Yeah. And as he admits, it's not perfect. There are sometimes he's like, that's odd that it spat this out. I need to tweak the models, and he's constantly tweaking it. But that's the thing. It's one.
It's like Pro Football Focus. It's not perfect in my opinion.
So. It's like the difference between QBR and the quarterback rating. Those are different ways of assessing.
Or Troy Aikman's quarterback efficiency rankings. Remember that? I should look that up. I haven't looked it up yet this year.
Let's see.
See where he's at. Didn't Dilfer have one too when he was with ESPN?
He came up with total QBR.
Was it total QBR? Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
That was it. Let's see. The Aikman efficiency ratings are current as of January 2022.
Oh, geez. Come on, Aikman.
Apparently he just gave up after a while.
Good Lord. Kind of like how I gave up my performance indicators too. So
that's right. The
KPI.
That's right. We're still waiting. Is that still on a GeoCities site or something? I mean, look, if Troy Aikman is using his time to be a really good analyst, good, because actually he's become probably by most accounts the best football analyst now on TV.
I will say, but I do think I was going to bring that up at some point that I do think the TV crews are kind of lacking.
Yeah,
a little bit here. I still go Greg Olson as my favorite right
now. Greg Olson's really good, yes. I think, and Aikman's standing out because he's actually critical.
Yes,
so a lot of people don't.
I honestly, if we were to power rank them, let's do this after the business of sports.
Sure.
Should we power rank our NFL announcing booths?
Yes.
Okay.
I like that.
All right, let's do that. So, new segment as we started last week, the business of sports, brought to you by Security Financial Bank. It was perfect last week with the whole Ohtani, contract out there and all that stuff. But, this week, maybe not a lot, but there's been a good number of Packers fans, maybe a little annoyed with Jair Alexander, thinking that he wants out and thinking that the Packers should trade Jair Alexander. Well, it's not that simple. It's not fantasy football. It's not even, pre-Madden where Madden would allow you to do whatever trades you wanted in a video game. It's a little bit more in detail. That you got a thing called the dead cap, right? You got the dead cap thing here. So first of all, what is dead cap? Because we talk about dead cap all the time, and maybe for some people they don't know exactly what dead cap is. It's because I don't want to go full on board here, but because the NFL contract, salary caps, I could go through those math equations. That might take me an hour and a half to go fully through here. But dead cap is the salary cap hit that your team would take if that player is no longer on your roster, right? Because I'm trying to put it in layman's terms here a little bit. Salary cap hits, each player's got a cap hit per particular year. It's not as simple as player A signs a $20 million deal for 5 years. Well, it's $4 million per year. That's a $4 million hit. It's not as simple as that. You've got, your guaranteed portion is the big part when it comes to NFL contracts. Your guaranteed money and your signing bonus money. That's why for signing bonus portion, we'll get to this later on probably. Signing bonus year one, that player's they get their signing bonus right away. That's why you see base salaries really small in year one because they get that $20 million signing bonus right away, right? It kind of evens out that way. So dead cap essentially is if you move on from a player early in their contract, a lot of times, you still got to account for that salary cap hit. That's where that dead cap. So you got a hit, but that player's not on the roster. Green Bay kind of going through it with Aaron Rodgers right now. New England was a big one with Tom Brady, right? That's what essentially dead cap is. So Jair, remember, he signed that 4-year, $84 million contract, $30 million signing bonus, $30 million guaranteed. Okay. He did that a couple years ago. So his cap hit, for example, for this year was $10.6 million. His dead cap, if Green Bay were to move on from him, let's say at the beginning of this year, would have been a whopping $37.6 million, Lucas. 2024, a little bit better, but not much. So his cap hit jumps up to $24.4 million. That's a big cap hit. But his dead cap hit is still $27.5 million. Now, you got that whole post June 1st, pre-post. So as a refresher, if a player, traded or released and that transaction is processed before June 1st, you can kind of break it up in different ways. If it's, I'll just read it exactly here from Spot Track. If a trade, release, or retirement is processed before June 1st in a given league year, all of the current and future dead cap associated with that contract is accelerated into the current season. That's why you hear a lot about post June 1st. Post June 1st, you kind of split it up. So in Jair's instance, if he was to be traded before that June 1st, Green Bay would lose actually $3.4 million of cap space. If he was traded after, they would gain $15.7 million cap space in 2024. However, they would have to eat $19.1 million dead cap in 2025. So you're not gaining anything. You're actually losing some cap space on this. What you probably should expect from Jair this offseason with the Packers is that good old restructure, Lucas. That whole restructure where they're going to convert a lot of that salary. His I think it's a little over $14 million. Let me see if I got it up here. Yeah, a little over $14 million in his salary. They're going to convert that into a signing bonus and then lowering that cap hit, kicking the can down the road a little bit further. And as soon as they do that restructure, they ain't trading him. They're not trading him. So it's not as simple as dude isn't playing, let's trade him, move on. He seems like he doesn't want to be there, which again, unless you're in the locker room or you're with the team or you're in 1265, you probably don't know. But money-wise, it doesn't make sense. You lose money. It was the same thing with David Bakhtiari this year. When David Bakhtiari was back on Green Bay last year, what was a lot of Packer fans saying? They wanted David Bakhtiari. You got to move on from him. It was more expensive to move on from him than to keep him on the roster to see what you had left. He played the first game and then couldn't do anything after that. It stunk, but it would have cost, I think, was it almost $40 million in dead cap hit to move on from Bakhtiari before this season. So when we say to trade or move on or release a player, you do have to factor in the dead cap hit, and the dead cap hit is put into place so these teams can't take advantage of the salary cap where They sign, a player to a huge contract. And then, that team wants to release them after year one and not have any ramifications from that. That's where the dead cap comes in. So there is still ramifications. So that team does get penalized or deters the team from moving on from a high-priced player after like 1 year of their new deal. Make sense?
Yeah. It's basically accounting. It took me so long to figure this out. But it's the difference between I know Andrew Brandt oftentimes say it's the difference from cash versus cap.
Yeah.
And the cash, the actual dollars that get exchanged from the team to the player, that's the signing bonus. That's that stuff that comes into your bank account. Literally, look, hey, there's an extra $26 million just deposited. Versus the cap accounting, so teams can't stock up tons and tons of players and be unfair about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why that dead cap, again, if I'm interpreting, I'm also kind of re-explaining what you said just for my own brain's sake to make sure that it's processing this correctly, is whatever's left, whatever's left on that contract. You cut the guy depending on the time of year, depending on how the accounting works for a given NFL year, or that pre-June, post-June 1st sort of thing. Basically, everything accelerates right up to right now.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had $27 million or accounted for, divvied up over the next few years, bam, all that goes right now on your cap. It's an immediate charge.
Yep. And obviously, in a normal sense too, dead cap hits get smaller the longer the contract goes. So, long into the contract you go.
Outside of a weird Aaron Rodgers thing.
Right,
I do
exactly.
not want to try to figure that one out, whatever was going on with that contract.
Yeah, that one was just, and everybody else said
with
it was
the dead cap,
weird.
it was like going up with time. I was like, what?
Exactly. It was just really constructed weird. But in normal contracts, the dead cap hits would get smaller because, and this is where the salary cap thing with the NFL gets really kind of weird. So it's kind of like that cash versus cap thing again. When you sign a signing bonus in the NFL, if you get, say $20 million signing bonus, like we said, you get that up front. But say you signed a 5-year deal. The cap hit from that signing bonus gets divided by 5. So even though the player gets $20 million up front, they're only going to get a $4 million cap hit, that team, through 5 years.
Right.
And so if the contract, though, let's say is like $35 million guaranteed, signing bonuses are guaranteed. That's part of the guarantee. But the player is guaranteed $35 million. That dead cap hit gets smaller and smaller as soon as that player on an accounting line, as soon as they make $35 million according to the numbers, then that dead cap hit would get to 0. But even though in real money they have already made that $35 million, because of the cap hits every year, they haven't made that 35.
Right.
That goes to that cash versus cap sort of thing.
Because the signing bonus is actual money. The contract is not necessarily the money you're going to make. But the signing bonus is done so players aren't like, hey, wait a minute. So I'm getting like nothing out of this potentially. So it evens out both ways. So it's fair for the players. Well, players would have plenty of issues with percentages going around, but that's a whole nother thing. But it's more fair for the players. It's fair for all of the teams. They all have a shot, and that's why you can't just bail on Jair Alexander right now. Now, if Jair Alexander comes out and says, like, Matt LaFleur is one of the worst human beings ever, and I think Mark Murphy should go to jail and blah, 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 blah.
Then you kind of force that.
Yeah, and then that's where you get, like, what the Steelers... I can't remember which player it seems like they've had so many problem skilled players.
Mm-hmm. Well, they have the whole Le'Veon Bell situation there too.
Yeah, and sometimes a team will eat the cap and they're like, yeah, this is going to suck for us, but it actually is worse to keep this guy on the roster. It's rare, but it does happen. I can't see that happening with Jair Alexander. There's no indication that ever would happen. So, yeah, Jair Alexander is going to be around at least for the near term, maybe towards the end, then maybe you can afford. And also the other factor, and I think maybe you said this, but the other factor here is, when do you kind of have to do the cap hits now because of how every other contract looks? That's right. The other,
and that's why they're taking a lot of the cap hit this year. With the Rodgers cap hit, dead cap hit, they're taking that on this year, right?
Right. You can afford to based on the accounting of it.
And they're going to get a lot more cap space open next year because I think we can all agree David Bakhtiari is not going to be on this team next year.
Nope.
And that's I use that example where it was cheaper to keep David Bakhtiari on your team this year. His cap hit this year was $21.3 million. His dead cap hit was $40 million. So essentially you're losing $19 million in cap space if you would have released him.
Yeah.
What's the point of that then?
It's not. That's like a few players potentially.
Right. And that's why you look at 2024, his cap hit, it's $40.5 million next year. But you know what? His dead cap, 19. It reversed. So you're saving almost $21 million in cap space by releasing David Bakhtiari.
Mm-hmm.
The Devondre Campbell one is another example where his is almost even. This year, he had a cap hit of just $5.5 million. That's chunk change. But his dead cap, 16.9.
Because of that longer contract that it was signed.
Yep. Next year, where, we're assuming that he's going to go bye-bye too, he's got a cap hit. It explodes up to 14.4. Dead cap hit is still high, but it's at 11.6. So you're going to save about $3 million if you move on from Devondre Campbell. Yeah. If you wait another year, it's 12.5 compared to 7.9. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that one I can still see. They move on. They're going to take that hit, but they're still saving about $3 million.
You probably want to bring this back a few times when we get into release times.
Yeah.
That's the one where I always have to go through the refresher course on this. But yeah, this will come back plenty in the next several months.
Yeah, especially, another name that we can throw out there is going to be Aaron Jones for next year.
Mm-hmm. That's a big one.
Yep, because his cap hit is 17.7 and his dead cap is 12.4.
And also whomever gets signed and what's the guaranteed money.
And then you got the whole deferrals now thanks to COVID.
Yeah.
Or not deferrals, what was it? Those years, what's the word for it? I just blanked on it.
I can't remember, but the COVID years, or however they termed that. I know what you're talking about. And that's
voided years. Voided years.
Yes. Voided years are so confusing too.
Yep. Because you don't have a player, but you're Adrian Amos. Packers have a cap hit for Adrian Amos this year, even though he was a free agent. They got a cap hit of him because of the voided years contract.
Bring back the voided years thing, especially once we get free agency going, because we're going to hear a lot of that. Like, wow, this person signed a 7-year deal for. Well, how many of those are voidable years? That's another one of those accounting oddities that doesn't make sense, but it does. There's so much. Contracts are so confusing in the NFL.
They are.
I mean, when you understand them, it makes sense, but you really got to study this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I got to go back once in a while just as a refresher. I'm like, okay, so, and that's the thing. Like when you hear these numbers, when they come out, so-and-so signed a 6-year, $96 million deal. It's not that simple. Like that's why you see like the Ians and the Toms and all those guys, trying to, okay, well, the base money's here, workout money's here. Remember Andrew Brandt how many times saying they would put a premium, like they would really put a lot of money in their workout bonuses. One, to make sure those guys would come to Green Bay in the offseason. But that's also part of, salary. And then you've got the whole, we'll get to this in free agency too, money-wise, where it depends on, likely to get and not likely to get is how they term it. Incentives. Likely to get incentives, not likely to get incentives. Not likely to get incentives are added to next year's cap or geared towards next year's cap. Likely incentives, the current year's, it's confusing. So it's like, let's say Rashawn Gary had a incentive if he got 5 sacks. That's going to be termed as a likely incentive, so they factor that into their cap hit. If they put in there, Rashawn Gary is going to get 30 sacks, and if he gets 30 sacks and he gets an incentive, that would have been termed as not likely incentive, not a part of the current year's salary cap. There's so many things to go through this thing.
And again, this is all non-Aaron Rodgers contract
stuff.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
yeah.
And how they determine whether it's likely or not, they base it off the player's history.
Yeah.
So,
but the basic headline here is don't cut Jair Alexander right now because you're going to end up spending more money right now than you really can afford to do.
Or trade.
Yeah, because that goes right back on your cap because that's still it's not your player anymore. Counts against your cap.
Yep.
So just don't do it.
It's the whole dead cap thing here is to deter teams from doing that. To just unload contracts. Yeah, you still got you sign that guy. You still got to be committed to that guy one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, let's take a quick break. You want to do some power rankings?
Let's.
All right, power ranking football crews out there. All right. I was thinking about this the other day. I'll explain a little bit more coming up. Who is your favorite NFL announcing crew? Hit us up with the text on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line, 715-830-1912. Do we count the Manning cast in this thing or not?
I wouldn't.
Okay, good.
It's more of a talk show in that regard.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we're not doing the Manning cast in this one. We're talking the typical play-by-play analysts. I mean, I guess you could throw the sideline reporters in there too, even though they make up stuff apparently. So,
gosh, Thompson, why?
Yeah, that got swept under the rug really quick. Yeah. Holy moly! Yeah, anyways, so I don't know why I was thinking this the other day, but I was really thinking, I'm like, I feel like the product has suffered a little bit this year. It's down a little bit this year, a little bit for me. My number one is still, so I got two number ones. One has a little asterisk next to it because they're not a regular group. And I can't remember which game it was. It was an international game. But I really, 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 really enjoyed Rich Eisen, Dan Orlovsky, and Jason McCourty. I can't remember which game it was, but I was watching it and I'm like, that is a group I would love to listen for, like, the weekend's biggest game. Rich Eisen is the best already. He's all straight up football. We know that. I think more people now in the last couple of years are familiar with Dan Orlovsky, Jason McCourty on Good Morning Football. But what I really liked with that game, I can't remember which one it was. You had Orlovsky from the offensive side. McCourty was a defensive guy. And they were going back and forth like, on offense, if I'm looking at this and I'm looking to do this and I want to try this. And then McCourty would go the opposite. On the defensive side, I'm looking for the offense to do this. They explained it that way. And then you add in Rich Eisen, who's just awesome to begin with. It was awesome. I loved listening to that trio.
Chiefs Dolphins?
Yes, Chiefs Dolphins. Thank you. Yeah. It was that one. Yeah. That to me was just that they would be the best.
Jason McCourty, I was seeing on X, formerly known as Twitter, parentheses, that Jason McCourty during the play call. Let's see, which game was he? Which game was he doing? Was he doing the? Oh wait, I got it right in front of me. What am I saying? He was doing the Vikings game. Yeah. As I was looking at that and listening to his call, they're like, he's going to be a top 3 guy not that long from now, and he's been pretty highly assessed in the past few years since his NFL career has been done. Jason McCourty is on the rise for sure. I'm not sure that he's got the slickest voice. I don't know that I care about that. Right. I want to learn something more.
Yep.
And I'm going to learn more from Jason McCourty.
I'd rather have the quote slickest voice from the play-by-play person, if you know what I mean.
Right.
So,
that's an interesting top. I mean, it was technically a broadcast team this year.
It was.
And you're not going to get Rich Eisen on CBS or Fox or just because. I'm actually going to go Buck and Aikman number 1. Joe Buck is, I like.
Well, he doesn't hate the Vikings, so.
There's one team he does not hate. He hates all 31 other teams. I think he's finally past that. Like we've come around to the whole. Yeah, actually, maybe he's pretty good. Well, yes, he's always been good. It's just this bizarre anti-Buck sentiment. But what's really helped that team is Troy Aikman, like I said before, where it's to the point now with his critiquing and proper critiquing. He's not like the thing with Jeff Van Gundy is I think he got a little crotchety. And Aikman's not that. He calls out bad stuff, but he
gets a little crotchety when he's upset that the officials are taking forever to make a decision.
Yeah, there's that. But then again, who's really not?
He won some fans with that, I think.
I think he's kind of settling into voice of the fans mode. That can also go the wrong way too, because that's why you have an analyst to say, actually, what you're watching, here's what's really going on. But he settled into that the right way to the point where I think this was on the SI Media podcast. It was Jimmy Traina and I think was it Andrew Marchand wondering, is the league going to give ESPN a call and say, hey, that Troy Aikman, can he stop doing that? Maybe could you find another person to maybe do Monday Night Football? Kind of like the hint of what the NBA did with Van Gundy. That's not happening. But on the other hand, that makes him more of a draw. I would think the NFL seems to thrive a little bit on bad publicity, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So maybe they actually don't entirely mind that Aikman's doing that, because if the ratings numbers are good, that's the most important thing. I think they're number 1 right now. And I'm glad to see that. I think the Monday Night Football matchups have helped.
Mhm.
I was a little concerned that they were going to disappear into second-tier Monday Night Football territory, which I knew that the MNF ones were going to get better with the current deal. But there was still a bit of a concern that they're not going to be doing the late game Fox games. It's actually worked out pretty well for them, and I think they're calling games better in tandem.
Mm-hmm. So if I go with a regular, week by week, they're always there on the weekend. I'm still going with Burkhardt and Olsen. With my top one, Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olsen over there. I'm a big Greg Olsen fan. If Brady, I still have my doubts if he's going to do this, but if Brady does step into the booth next year, I think if I'm Greg Olsen, I'm taking my talents to the highest bidder at this point. I don't know what his contract looks like with Fox, but I'd be looking for a way out of that and taking my talents to the highest bidder. Yeah. Because I think he is, I really enjoy, again, I'm like you, I want to learn, and Greg is not that far removed from the current game. So he still provides a lot of, perspective from being so close to a lot of those guys who are still playing, I think, and even some of the coaches in that. I think Greg Olsen has far exceeded expectations people had for him at this point.
Very much so. That's going to be the trick with Olsen, McCourty. How long do they stay knowledgeable? We've kind of seen that with Tony Romo a little bit.
Yep.
Just a little, just enough years have passed now where he doesn't, and that could also be Romo's evolution where he's oh my gosh, but then a defensive game comes around and he totally checks out. You half expect him to be scrolling through TikTok during those games.
Yeah.
But I think that's also because he does not. I mean, the game has evolved even enough since Tony Romo retired, which was not that long ago, that he's not as sharp.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a bit of a jury out on both Olsen and McCourty. That being said, I agree with you. I was going back and forth to my number 2 and number 3, but I'm settling back in on Burkhardt and Olsen as my number 2.
My 2 is Buck and Aikman too. I've always liked Buck and Aikman, to be honest with you. But I agree with you. There is a little bit of a different feel with those two this year on Monday Night Football. I don't know exactly what it is, but yeah, you could tell there is something different in a good way. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's in a good way. I'm just going to run down my list here quick, and then you can finish yours.
Okay. Go for it.
I got Nance and Romo as my 3rd. Mm-hmm. Tirico and Collinsworth, they've dropped big time for me. You want to talk about somebody who I think is I'm sorry, but Chris Collinsworth, a lot of the big drop is because of Collinsworth for me right now. Yeah. Dude, there's more quarterbacks than Patrick Mahomes, just saying. And then I don't even know what they're still doing. Herbie and Al Michaels.
Oh, boy.
Kirk Herbstreit and Al Michaels.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. That one, yeesh. And I know a lot of his quality of games in that, but you want to talk about a guy who's get off my lawn, kind of disgruntled, and why am I here? That's kind of Al Michaels right now, it seems like. So
those Thursday night games, it's not. And again, this is another thing that I heard in one of those pods. It's not the worst scenario for him to be doing this. Thursday night football games, it's still a well-watched gig. It's not like he got shunted down to FCS football late in his career. It's still pretty decent, but he lets it known what he thinks about stuff right now. I guess in a way Troy Aikman does, but that's not what you would necessarily expect from your play-by-play guy.
Right.
I do think Al Michaels has slipped. I know I felt like I was the only person that was picking up on that about 4 or 5 years ago. And everyone's like, he's at the top of his game. He's not off, but I think he's a little bit. And I've noticed more of that. Again, not to the point where it's painful. Mm-hmm. But it's the energy is lacking.
Yep.
A little bit.
I agree. So who was your 3rd then?
3rd, I'm going to throw in a different batch here, and maybe it's because the games are constantly in the early CBS window around here because we end up getting a lot of Browns games, it seems. Ian Eagle and Charles Davis.
They're solid too. Yeah. I guess I good call because I was kind of looking at the A teams.
Yeah. So I'll just throw those in there. Like if I were to at the very top, I'd say that. In terms of A teams, because then after that we got again Nance and Romo,
Tirico and Collinsworth.
Yeah,
and then Herbie Hancock and Al Michaels.
Yeah, I mean that's clearly 5th.
Yeah.
Collins. But I mean,
I'm not a fan of Romo and Collinsworth, so to me, the advantage went to Nance over Tirico.
And Tirico's gotten, I've said before, Tirico's gotten way better as a play-by-play guy, but Nance is Nance.
Yeah.
And Nance is still top of his game.
Yep.
There's been no slippage at all. In his early 60s now, I think. So he's still probably got several years left. And you don't know exactly how long that will continue, but he's...
Well, he's not doing basketball anymore,
right,
so he's got some break there.
A little bit more energy, which that's probably part of it. I think I'm going to, in terms of the top teams, I would agree. But I would put them all behind Eagle and Davis.
What do you think of Joe Davis and Daryl Johnson? Are they just kind of like solid, like it's not great, but it's not bad, kind of like average sort of thing?
Moose Johnson gets a little bit of flack, but not a ton. I mean, we're not talking like Chris Myers territory where you're like, oh boy.
What about Matt Ryan? We got to hear him a little bit during that Packer game.
Well, okay, I'll ask you, what did you think?
I thought Matt Ryan was okay. I was not impressed with Tiki.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a little bit of like obvious analysis.
Yeah.
And it took me a moment to even realize that was Matt Ryan talking. I'm just not used to hearing his voice that much. And I know he's been doing some games, but not
he
as many.
Seems like I think he's a guy that with more repetition, he could be a little bit better.
Yeah, it'll get there with time. He's not going to be a number one, but he could settle into like the Trent Green.
I was just going to say Trent Green. Yeah.
Probably something like that, which is fair. You're going to end up with like a 2 or 3 game. You'll probably get paired with an up-and-comer, someone like an Adam Amin. Like, I'm very high on him as a play-by-play guy. You know, Jonathan Vilma, apparently shocking words coming from a Vikings fan, given Vilma's history.
Well, I'm not a Vilma fan.
You're not a Vilma fan?
No, there was a game he did, and I should try to find the tweet because even Brandon liked it. But it was it must have been a Packer game, but it was. Let me see if I can find it. Because the irony that he put out there. Oh yeah, I posted. It was the 29th. So what game was that? That would have been the Minnesota game. Anybody else find it a bit ironic? Vilma talks about how that's an unnecessary hit on the quarterback, and he did it a couple times. And I'm like, dude, it wasn't even that bad. I'm like, it's just ironic.
Yeah,
the irony.
Read the room kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Again, maybe with a little bit more polishing, but not the biggest Vilma. The delivery is good, but I don't know.
There are a few things he's noted where I go, oh, again, I'm like, oh, that's an interesting perspective on that. I like that. But something does seem to be keeping him back. And I'm not, that has nothing to do with the Saints bound again. I go, no. He hasn't risen as fast as I thought. Then again, he's on the Kenny Albert team, and that I can't remember where the rankings are. And there's like a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's set at the beginning.
Yeah, they're 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so pretty decent. I mean, Joe Davis is going to be above, obviously. Or wait,
Mark Schlereth and Adam Amin.
Adam Amin
is third, and Joe Davis is 2.
Okay, and yeah, like I said, Adam Amin's going up pretty fast. But
Chris Myers is not getting the respect, man. I mean, I remember I was at a Packer preseason game in 2007, and he was a sideline reporter. And we were sitting behind the Jacksonville Jaguars bench, and people were just enamored with Myers.
Really?
I think it was just kind of tongue-in-cheek, but they're like, Chris! Just yelling at him, trying to get attention. He'd turn around. He'd have fun with it.
Yeah.
It was just like, I mean, it's Chris Myers, man.
And again, I've got like nothing against him in a general sense, but his calls of, if you do the totality of, kind of missed that. I think he's got the most over like the last 15 years, unfortunately. But it's kind of
he might just be better as a sideline reporter too. Who knows?
Maybe, yeah. But he can call a game. Obviously, he's not going to get that gig without as much as. We fans are like, wow, that guy sucks. Well, okay, yeah, you try it. It's not easy. Some of us have actually tried calling games. These guys really know what they're doing, and they got a lot of help up there, like good help.
Why don't you ask Jason Witten how easy it is to call football games?
Right. Ask Booger McFarland. I know he says he'd like to try something, but yeah, it's difficult to do.
Yeah.
It's really difficult.
Really quick, because we got to do some picks and predicts coming up here. Really quick, best rules analysts. Terry McCauley, Gene Steratore, John Perry.
I'm a Gene Steratore person.
Oh yeah, me too, man.
I mean, part of it's just because it's Gene Steratore, and yeah.
And I know he it was the Packer game. He kind of misinterpreted, but he acknowledged he misinterpreted one of the rules.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
he went out there and
call
acknowledged
yourself
it.
out.
So.
That's good.
Yep.
That's solid.
All right, let's take a quick break, and then we'll do some picks and predicts coming up after these quick words. Time for some picks and predicts brought to you by the Elbow Room right here in Eau Claire, right next to the Banbury Place. Plus, they've got Man Cave Light over there. So if you're looking for somewhere to maybe catch the game or such and have a nice cold beverage, Elbow Room in Eau Claire. We don't have a bowl game to pick today because the Boca Raton bowl game is tomorrow, Lucas. So sorry. However, I will say this. You and I both have maybe a quarrel or peeve. I messed that word up. Peeve with Mr. Brandon Burke. Mm-hmm. You and I are both leading in his bowl pick'em, 8-1. However, Brandon put it so you can do your confidence points in this thing. So where you can change your confidence points in each game. So Brandon with a 6-3 record is in first place. How weird how that works out, huh?
Whoa.
You and I are both 8-1. We're the only ones 8-1 in that group. Yet we're not in first. Brandon's in first with 6-3.
You'd think as a fellow Viking fan being upset about shady game planning like the New Orleans Saints in the 2009 NFC Championship game, they would learn a thing or two about doing similar things for the Bowl Pick'em.
Mm-hmm.
My gosh.
Yeah.
What is he hiring Greg Williams to do his analysis?
I'll just say
My
that
gosh.
Brandon might make my Festivus list on Friday.
Ooh, fighting words.
And, Surveyor Sam, who was talking a little trash about his picks, he's 6-3. Same record as Brandon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Second to last place.
Wow. Apparently, I need to pay more attention to these bowl games.
Confidence points, schmopfish points. Who needs confidence points? Your confidence should be just the pick in itself.
So is Friday's show going to be one of those like recent spate of awkward sports talk shows where like the two hosts like clearly don't get along and start arguing, and like one person leaves midway through the show and everyone's like, wait, what is this serious?
I can't get Brandon riled up and upset. The only day I've ever seen him upset is usually the Festivus day. So I'm going to go after him.
If you compare him to Greg Williams, that might set him off.
Yeah.
I think so.
I
don't care as much about, and I was pretty angry about. I don't get his. I think that's a sore spot for him.
I'm going to go after him, man.
Oh boy,
I'm going after him.
It's the Festivus spirit, folks.
All right.
Ho, ho.
Yeah. Hey, we've got some interesting college basketball games though on tap for tonight. So let's hit that up. Number 10 Baylor taking on number 21 Duke. Duke, the spread favored by 3.5 in this game.
Let's see. Baylor had a game. I'm gonna go Duke.
Gonna go Duke. It's in Duke, so yeah, I gotta go Duke. Home court advantage. Cameron Indoor, the Cameron Crazies, and all that stuff. I'm gonna go with them. Another intriguing game. Number 11 North Carolina visiting number 7 and undefeated Oklahoma. North Carolina, though, favored by 3.5.
Interesting. I'll go heels.
I'm gonna go Oklahoma. I love my North Carolina Tar Heels, but they've also lost their last 2 games.
Huh.
They lost to UConn 87-76, and they lost to Kentucky 87-83. I know good games, right, or good teams, but although I don't know if anything could top Oklahoma's latest win against Green Bay, 81-47.
Alas, UWGB couldn't quite hold on.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just gonna go Oklahoma on this one. I don't know why,
you got
but
a feeling about
I got a feeling. More than a feeling, as Boston would say. So
tonight's gonna be a good night.
Thank you, Black Eyed Peas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nice. Oh, remember that song had to have been played at every stadium in America.
I think it still is.
Because I went to a lot of games at Lambeau that year in 2010 when I lived in Rapids. I think I went to like 5 or 6 games that year, home games. That song was like played multiple times, and that was like the couple of years after it came out.
Right up there with that song that had Lil Wayne and kind of featured. What was that?
I don't know.
You'd know it if you heard it.
Oh, Let It Rock.
Yes, Let It Rock was played
with Kevin Rudolph.
Because
yes.
He was associated with Lil Wayne. That's where I made the thing. Gosh, that song got played a ton at Lambeau. Like, I seriously, to this day, I hear that song. I think of going to Lambeau games circa 2008, around that time.
Oh, yeah.
Gosh, they played that song a lot.
I'd rather listen to that than Start Me Up, though.
Yeah.
That's overplayed.
Got to appeal to the boomers. Sorry.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though, too. Okay, not to get off on a tangent. And I don't know if they still do this. I haven't been to a game yet this year. But when they go to the crowd, they used to do this. They would go to, at Lambeau, they'd go to the crowd and do a song request, right? You telling me every single time somebody picked Start Me Up, I swear every time I was at a game and they do that, it was Start Me Up. You telling me they actually did that, or was that like, hey, we're gonna put you on the big screen, but you gotta request Start Me Up?
That, or like they gave one or something.
Like a list between the two.
Right.
3
or
whatever.
Becomes like a running joke, maybe.
Yeah.
Kind of like, oh gosh, for those that remember, on David Letterman, this always annoyed me, and I think I figured out after a while that it was a running joke. When they'd go to the audience on The Late Show in the CBS era, And they're like, here are 3 possible games to play. And it was always know your cuts of meat.
Mm.
And I was like, come on, do the other ones. And then I figured, you know what? I think that's just because they always want to do the cuts of meat game.
Yeah.
So, and like Letterman was like pointing out on the card, you go, okay, that's why they're doing. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Like, well, they're planning this, so sure.
Or their DJ at the time was just really lazy. So that too. Hey, let's move to the NBA. This should be a good game tonight. Your T-Wolves taking on the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yes, and the Timberwolves are finally at full health. Arguably the best team right now in the NBA. Not just based on record, they're playing the best. It's the point now they're trailing. I think they've got a shot of winning because they keep doing it. They did it the other night against Miami. They came back again.
Philly is favored by 3.5.
Oh, now I was so looking forward to that last Philly game, and then Joel Embiid was out. I'm like, oh, okay. I will take Philadelphia in a good loss for Minnesota. This is an NBA Finals preview. A potential among several options.
Oh, okay. I was going to say you're going to call it already.
And the thing is, though, I very much I was pondering a few likely scenarios, and I very much could see Minnesota, Philadelphia. Like that would not surprise me at all. Like if I'm making my picks right now for the conference finals and such, I'm sticking with Boston over Milwaukee. And right now, I'd have Minnesota over Denver. I'd have a Minnesota-Boston.
Why can't you just want Milwaukee and Minnesota so we'd have something to talk about for 4 games because Milwaukee would sweep them?
Ha, 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 ha. I still think that'd be a great 7-game series. Honestly, that could be an all-timer. Really could be good. And then I just sit back and watch everyone complain about having to go to the upper Midwest.
Oh, God, yeah, right.
The thing is that it's going to be in June. It's going to be nice weather.
Yeah. Why are you, when they did that with the Bucks and the Suns, I'm like, you guys are complaining about spending one of the most gorgeous times of the year in Wisconsin?
Really?
Tells you how much you actually know, Stephen A.
Brace yourselves for even more. He's going to have to go way up north.
Well, I saw him at the Super Bowl when I was over there. I was standing in line at Chick-fil-A, and he was about 10 feet to my right, so.
He is his
He had a heavy coat on. He was fine.
Yeah.
So
he was indoors.
Yeah, exactly.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Mall of America. They have heat in that building.
Let's do one more NBA game. Clippers Mavericks. This one's in Dallas. Clippers though favored by 3.5.
And they have been playing really well of late. James Harden's been playing really well of late as well. Let's see how long that lasts, but I think it might last even through this game. That being said, Luka's just doing Luka things like nuts right now. No, I'm going to go with the Mavericks actually tonight. I think Dallas feels like they're due for Luka Doncic to just take over a game, and even with the Clippers playing Kawhi
Clippers
Leonard's,
have an 8-game winning streak going on.
And
Kawhi
Kawhi Leonard's playing about as well as he has in a long time. But I'm going to take Dallas in this particular one.
I'm going Dallas as well. Even with the Clippers' 8-game winning streak, they bounce back after that loss to Denver, and the Mavericks pick up the W.
Yeah.
So, all right, those are the games that we're picking for our picks and predicts. Brought to you by the Elbow Room over there.
Quick look ahead to tomorrow. Your Magic against your Bucks.
I know, right?
What do you do?
Well, it's Bucks now, unless they bust out the throwbacks from Orlando. Then I'm my head will be in a mess. The black with the white pinstripes. Oh, yeah.
Let's see. What does it say on NBA Locker Vision for tomorrow? Because, yes, I can look this up. Schedule for tomorrow. So if you want to know if the team's going to wear decent uniforms for a given game, you can do this. The Magic are they're wearing their usual whites.
Lame.
Yeah. So, no. You can root for the Bucks safely tomorrow.
Okay. That's good, right?
Because the uniform is going to work out, so you can be a Bucks fan this time.
Yeah.
They're wearing green. They're wearing their icon. So basically, I still call them the Rhodes. I can't wait till we're done with all of these association edition, statement edition.
Do you know how many retired numbers, really quick, the Orlando Magic have?
3?
No.
2?
No.
7?
No.
None?
1. Take a guess.
Is it someone who's very famous but went elsewhere?
Yes.
So
there's a little caveat. I'm running out of time here.
Penny Hardaway.
No.
Shaq.
Nobody who played for him. It's 6. for the sixth man, but also because Bill Russell's number 6 is now retired across the league. That's it.
Well,
Should they retire the 32?
Yeah,
I think so.
I associate him with the Magic, so sure.
Heck yeah.
Why not?
I mean, you're putting up banners for everything these days. The Magic aren't the Yankees where they can just shell out numbers. I mean, for crying out loud, you got to do something with your history.
They got pinstripes.
I mean, throw up Dennis Scott's 3 and Nick Anderson's 25 for all I care. Forrest Grant's 54. Trace McGrady's 1 with T. Penny. I don't know. Okay. Have a good day.